Whether you're joining a Product Marketing Alliance event for the first time, or if you're a seasoned regular, welcome to the first ever Customer Marketing Summit. Before we set the ball rolling on the next session, we just want to say a huge thank you to our sponsors, partners, speakers, and you, our lovely audience. From wherever in the world you are watching, we're sure you'll enjoy the sessions from our incredible lineup. With expert presentations, specialist talks, and deep dive panel sessions on the agenda, you are in for a real treat today. To get the most out of these sessions, please ensure you are sharing your feedback and asking all your questions in the comments section, and our speakers will be answering them throughout. After the event, a great place to continue the conversation is in the customer marketing channel in the PMA Slack community. If you aren't already a member, hop on over. In addition to the jam-packed lineup, we were delighted to announce the winner of the Customer Marketing Excellence Award a little earlier today. Missed it? Well, don't worry, because we have given the winner and the runners-up a shout out in the Customer Marketing channel on Slack. Be sure to head on over and share your congratulations. We had a great time reviewing all your fantastic nominations. Thanks for taking the time to share them with us. But now, it's time for the next talk. Hi everybody, welcome back to the Customer Marketing Summit. So we've got another fantastic session for you here now. We are welcoming Kevin Lau from Adobe. So just before I hand over to you, Kevin, just to remind everyone, this is going to be a live Q&A session at the end. So feel free to ask your question in the comments section, and I'll be putting them to Kevin afterwards. So the stage is yours.
Cool. Thank you so much, Rose, and thank you for the opportunity to present today on a topic that I'm super passionate about. And specifically, I'm going to be talking about why customer retention is the new growth, how advocacy and adoption can help accelerate your business. My name is Kevin Lau. I'm the Global Head of Customer Advocacy at Adobe for Adobe's digital experience business. So to kick off some of the slides and some of the information, a little about myself. I've been at Adobe now for a little bit over 4 years. I've been in the industry for a little bit more than 11, running customer programs for different organizations. And as you can kind of see from this slide, I'm also super passionate about all things Comic-Con, collectibles, etc. And it's completely fine to be a man-child and play with toys, even if you're an adult. So now that we got through some of that stuff, I want to talk specifically about what I want to give you guys as far as an agenda and takeaways from this session. I really want to talk a little bit more about, especially if you're trying to expand your remit within customer marketing, or you're looking to build out this function within your company or devote more resources and things like that, how to actually build a scalable customer program that drives results, how to ultimately build internal alignment, especially with your executive stakeholders, which I think is paramount and key to give you any type of really support and success long-term. And then also how to create a set customer marketing success framework, something that encompasses your values, what you stand for, ultimately what is it that you care about, and what you things that other teams will do that they specialize in. And then also a tried and tested customer marketing blueprint that we've implemented, that I've implemented other companies, and through a lot of the learnings and the pitfalls that we've experienced over the past couple of years. And then ultimately how to measure program ROI so that you can really have a seat at the table and be able to get more budget, more resources, more headcount, et cetera. So it's a tall order. We have roughly about 20, 30 minutes together. And hopefully this will be something that that provides some value to yourselves. To level set, I want to talk a little bit about what Lisa Nakano said last year from Serious Decisions or now Forrester, where she really said that 2021 is the year of the customer marketer. And I truly believe that with everything that happened with the global pandemic in 2020, the major silver lining was that it created sort of the perfect storm around customer retention, and why organizations could no longer see retention as sort of something that was just the responsibility of a customer success organization, or something they kind of took for granted. And they just kind of assumed that customers would inherently continue to pay for their subscriptions, especially if you're a SaaS business. And so I think this really put front and center the elevated importance of customer marketers, line in line with what demand marketers have been doing for probably the past 20, 30 years. And historically, most of those budgets have always gone to demand teams, but we started to see the shift and the renewed focus around customer marketing and retention as sort of the key foundation for helping organizations be successful and really survive, especially in this virtual environment that we're in today. And so at the end of the day, what does it mean to actually create exceptional customer experiences that will ultimately help impact the customer journey at the end of the day? And what are the things that you could actually action to help drive that? And so I kind of boiled it down to sort of what I think of as sort of the magic three. And these are sort of the foundational elements when you're starting to think about a customer marketing function, or you're trying to think about how do you continue to reimagine or up-level your programs, some of the things that you may already be doing today. But the first one, which I think is foundational, is you need to engage your diehard customers. So these are the folks that are super passionate about your product, that they tout their experience, and they showcase why it's important to them and how it's ultimately helped impact their career. In our particular example, when I joined Marketo back before we even were acquired by Adobe, I was talking to the folks that we call our Marketo Engaged Champions. Now, this is a program that has existed now for about 10 plus years. And essentially, these are the folks that, as you can see, have drank the Kool-Aid, or the purple Kool-Aid. They're super passionate. They wear purple. Immediately, the first thing that came out of their mouths was that they bleed purple. And as you can see, they're sort of our expert practitioners that know the product inside and out. And they also tout it across their digital channels and their profiles as sort of a badge of honor. So as you can see, from Jenny Robertson to some of these other folks, to be labeled as a Marketo champion is truly a career-defining moment that has helped them with increasing their salaries, help them to get new promotions, etc. And so we tapped into this audience to figure out exactly how could we better serve you? How could we build the relationships? How could we create programs at scale with the customer at the end of the day that is really going to help them be successful, and give them the tools and the resources to continue to innovate with Marketo as well as our other products and solutions that we're running. And so that was the first foundational piece to help unlock sort of the potential around the value that customer marketing brought to the table in our company and organization. The second thing, which is also just as critical and important, is building executive alignment early and often. And I think this is often one of the things that is sometimes overlooked because it seems so obvious, but especially if you work at a startup company, you work at an enterprise organization, there's always political change. There's always new people joining, people leaving. And so being able to build that alignment early and often is critical to your own success. And I've kind of boiled it down to sort of these four things that you want to think about, especially as you're engaging new leadership, and especially if you're trying to get your name out there. And when we went through this acquisition process from Marketo to Adobe, we went from roughly about 1,500 employees to over 20,000. And so the scale of magnitude to be able to make an impression, be able to engage that audience became even more critical, especially when you work in a matrixed organization like Adobe. And so what it began with is looking at what are some of the shared goals and responsibilities that customer retention will have for the broader organization and the company. And so things about, how can you influence customer experience? Well, that's really not just one team or one mission's responsibility. It goes through both marketing, sales, customer success, support, to really influence what does that customer journey look like, and how can you create magic moments for those customers so they want to continue to do business with you. The second thing that's also super critical and important is about over communicating frequently. Even if you have something that doesn't seem that important, I guarantee you, as you can start to get more face time, whether it's in their team meetings or email updates or newsletters or whatnot, if you can get more face time and visibility to your leadership, and they can start to see the programs, the work that you're doing collaboratively across the organization, this is when it starts to become more top of mind for them. The third thing is give credit along the way. And these are folks that, whether it's your executive stakeholders, some of their lieutenants, the folks that are really leaning into your programs and investing the time and resources and saying that, hey, this is important enough for the company to really rally behind, those are the ones that you want to continue to build those strong relationships with. And then the fourth one is being able to share results on a regular basis. So this goes hand in hand with all the other three elements, but it's really about showing them the success or the progression that you're making over time. And it doesn't have to be, huge inroads that you're influencing, tens of millions of dollars necessarily. It could be some of the foundational things that are helping to pave the way for some of your future programs and some of your expansion work that you're really focused on to help drive retention and renewed interest around how to protect your customers long term. And so with those two foundational elements around engaging your stakeholders internally and then talking to your diehard customer fans, the third one, which is also critical, and I think of it as sort of like a three-legged stool, is about how do you actually build a customer marketing success framework. And these are things that really speak to what are your values, what are the things that your team stands for, and also what are the things that your team doesn't stand for, and be very clear and precise as far as what is your remit or what is your charter, so that other teams internally can understand it, but also your customers that you're going to be working with very closely. So we actually created a slide that looks like this, that basically says, what are the things that we don't do? So we don't do retention save plays, which is historically around what a customer success function has been focused on. We don't necessarily do renewal marketing in the sense that we drive pipeline or progression to help influence a renewal deal. We don't do upsell and cross-sell. That's something that our demand gen team focuses on specifically. And we don't do customer references, which is something that our corporate marketing team focuses on. And so once you get clear as far as what is it that you don't do, then it becomes easier to articulate sort of the strategic pillars and your missions of what it is that you do as a team. And to give you an example of what our team's mission and strategic pillars are, as you can see, it's focused on sort of these three foundational elements about how do we drive ultimately deeper product adoption and maturity? How do we ignite our customers, become advocates and super fans for our solutions and products? And then the third pillar is how do we drive deeper community engagement so that we create these relationships and ignite some of that passion so that customers want to feel that they're part of something bigger than themselves. And I'm going to be talking about each of these elements in more detail and give you some of those examples, especially if you're brand new to customer marketing or you're looking to see how to expand your programs going forward. So the first foundational element really comes down to community. And I look at this as sort of the backbone that makes everything else work from your customer programs and on up. And I think it really comes down to building connection and purpose and having that shared experience around, how can you create these magic moments where people feel like they're able to talk shop, they feel like they're part of something bigger than themselves. And it doesn't necessarily have to be an online forum, which is what traditionally, I think from a B2B context, what community is kind of labeled at. It could even be just two people talking together on a Blue Jeans call or a Zoom conversation, and it could eventually scale out to include dozens of people to not hundreds, if not thousands of individuals. But it ultimately kind of gets created based on a shared understanding or a mission or a feeling that they're part of something where they feel like there's something special there and they want to continue to grow it and they feel inherently responsible for driving community. In our particular case, we have a number of different community channels that we look at. The first one being our Adobe Experience League, as well as the Marketing Nation community for some of our customers. But then beyond just kind of our online forums, you could also think about things like user groups, meetups, user conferences like our Adobe Summit. But they could also be things around like executive roundtables. So folks that might be at a certain level and also be part of sort of a tight-knit community or a small group. But at the same time, it could be exclusive programs or titles where people feel like they have a shared understanding or being part of something that's exclusive or just for a certain member or a certain amount of people there. And so that's sort of that first pillar that we run within customer marketing today. The second thing that goes sort of hand in hand with this is around customer advocacy. And this is what I think historically, for the most part, at least for probably the past 5 or 6 years, this is what most customer marketing functions have really been devoted solely on, which is around how do we ignite customer passion? How do we tell more stories? How do we provide a platform for our customers to share their story, to elevate their brand, et cetera, and create those career defining moments for them? If you boil it down to it, I think it comes down to sort of these three pillars of customer advocacy. It's about personal branding, it's providing peer networking, and then it's also rewards and recognition to elevate that experience for your customers. So we'll talk about a little bit about each one of these in a little bit more detail. From a personal branding standpoint, these could be things as simple as some thought leadership opportunities from speaking at your events, to talking to media, to talking to your PR stakeholders. But it also could be things around being involved in some of your product beta testing, or being part of some of these elite programs that you might be running, from like a customer advisory board to anything around being an expert practitioner. But ultimately, at the end of the day, it's about how can you help your customer really achieve that next promotion, help them double their salary, or get to that next threshold. From a peer networking standpoint, this goes hand in hand with some of the community elements I talked about on the past couple slides, but it's giving them that sort of anchor where they can kind of come together, talk shop, and share those experiences. And then the third one, which I think most companies, they tend to think that it has to be just swag or tangible goods and things like that, but it absolutely doesn't have to be. It could also be program titles. It could be recognition from a customer rewards program. It could also be, product features and being early adopters to your technology. And also from a gamification standpoint, having access to different levels and points within your own community. Now, to take it a little bit step further, especially since we're talking to a product marketing audience or product managers as well, there's other ways that you can leverage your advocates today. So whether you're looking at, getting feedback on your product roadmap, if you're looking for help around your go-to-market strategy, if you're looking for, especially if you're going through an M&A experience, these are all ways that you can tap into your advocates to find out what is ultimately the voice of the customer and what's going to move the needle and what's going to drive awareness from some of your initiatives, and ultimately create social proof and how that can make inroads to things that you're working on specifically. To give it a little bit more context, I want to give you an example specifically from one of our best advocates. Her name is Jess Cow. And as you can kind of see from the slides here, she actually started her career 15 years ago as a cancer biology student at Stanford. And one day she decided to make the shift in the career into marketing operations. And she met some of her colleagues and friends, and they told her about all the great things you could do with MOPS. And she got really passionate about that. And she ultimately became an expert in all things Marketo. And then she wanted to become a Marketo Engaged Champion, as well as a user group leader for us. And these are programs that existed for 10 plus years. And she was there at sort of the very foundational elements when this product and this career was really kind of transforming what the marketing operations professional was all about. And then a couple of years ago, I actually spoke to her. She was one of the first real customers that I spoke to really think about what are the programs that we want to be known for, how do we transform our current landscape. And she really helped us reimagine what does that customer experience look like for Marketo, then ultimately for Adobe down the road. And then she also spoke at some of our summit conferences over the past 5 years. She ended up winning what we call our Marketo Engage Revy Award. And then more recently, when we went through the acquisition from Marketo to Adobe, she actually spoke main stage on our summit conference to kind of rally the troops and drive the passion around why Adobe's continue investing in the marketing automation space. And she spoke with some of our executive stakeholders at Adobe. And then today she went from an individual contributor to now a senior director of demand ops, and incredibly proud of her journey and what she's been able to accomplish. But Jess is also just one example of a number of different situations, as you kind of see from these slides, of how some of our customers have really been able to see the impact that our programs and our technology has been able to do for their own careers. And I think it really comes down to how can you create ultimately these magic moments that are going to drive deeper impact, build the relationship, and ultimately create community for your customers. So that's the second thing that I want to cover from community and advocacy. The third pillar, which I think is also just as critical and foundational to everything else, is about adoption and customer retention efforts. So when I think about this, it's really about value realization. It's how do you drive deeper product maturity And how do you reinforce learning so at the end of the day, your customers understand when they go through their onboarding experience, what are the exact things that they should be implementing? What are the things that they should be avoiding? And what are the pitfalls that that other customers have gone through that they can learn from through that experience? And I think by having both an advocacy and an adoption team together under one roof, it really creates this synergistic relationship where adoption is the on-ramp to advocacy. As more customers become adopted, by default, they want to become advocates. But at the same time, those advocates want to share their story, their experience. And so we've actually used our advocates to help fuel our adoption programs and actually create content. And I'll give you a playbook exactly how that works and how you could put it together. And having built really those two things under one umbrella drives the greatest impact for customer experience. So when you start to think about, building a scalable customer adoption framework, always think about it from the customer lens. How does it start and end with the customer? And what is it that they need to be successful? So if you break it down into its components, it's looking at these 5 different stages. The learn phase is kind of understanding what are some of the program requirements? What is it that we want to actually create that's going to be helpful for the customer to drive deeper product maturity? And then this is also the most critical phase. It's actually listening and having those informational customer interviews and talking to your customers to map out what are some of those paths to success that they found and what are some of those pitfalls that they could avoid. And then the third phase is actually creating that content and developing those programs, whether it's a nurture program, an in-product guide or something like that. And then being able to deliver that in relevant places, exactly where the customers need them. And then simply being able to measure and continue to optimize that journey so that you're making improvements along the way. So to give you a full-blown example, if you're, for example, you wanted to create a customer adoption program and specifically a series of email nurtures, you can think about it from 4 different angles. The first one would be like an onboarding nurture, where you're thinking about what is the first 30, 60, 90 days that a customer needs to learn. What are some of the tips and tricks to help them with their implementation, et cetera? And then as that customer gets a little bit more familiar, what are some of the a little bit more advanced tools and skill sets they should be aware of at that point, all the way to the time that they're more of a mature customer, or maybe they've been using it for a number of years. And what are some of those additional tips and tricks to help them be successful and get more value from your products and solutions? And I think once you've done all those 3 things, it then lays the foundation for being able to convert these customers into those raving fans and then have their permission to ultimately be able to cross-sell and upsell them on future products once they've first seen the value. Now, in terms of other ways, there's in-product guides that could help along that journey, especially when they're inside the product and playing with it every single day. And then in terms of the content examples, what does this actually look like? Well, it could be in the form of interviews and surveys. It could be email nurtures. It could also be video content that you filmed, and also blogs and user-generated content that other customers can learn from. I think what also makes this really helpful, especially when you think about adoption and advocacy together, is that when you have your advocates front and center speaking the same language as your customer, they're more likely to engage with it than it is if, let's say, an Adobe employee like myself were to share, what are some of the things that they should be learning to do. If they hear directly from the horse's mouth, that's when it creates greater impact. And even though I said that there's actually 3 different things that are foundational for a customer success function to really be operational, I really think there's a 4th one. And I try to say that this is more of a bonus, but I think it's a must-have. And it really goes back to being able to measure impact and unlocking more budget and headcount at the end of the day. So I'll give you a couple examples on how we measure success and what I've seen other companies do that have been successful. The first one is something that we've developed relatively recently, and that's called the Advocate Score. Basically what it is, it looks at the correlation between customer engagement across your different advocacy channels and programs, and how does it actually tie direct revenue impact to new business, cross-sell, retention, the whole 9 yards. And so if you look at these 9 different programs, we use Marketo Engage as sort of the backbone, the technology, the infrastructure, and we have these different programs that feed into it. And so we look at different data points. For example, user groups, we use our Bevy technology to filter in user attendance data. We look at how is it growing over time. We look at community data. We look at some of our elite programs to see how does this ultimately tell a broader story that shows, how likely is a customer to become an advocate? And then also, what's the likelihood that accounts or customer accounts that have advocates versus those that don't ultimately influence churn over time? And so this, I think, would say is sort of the holy grail of being able to determine, value from your programs. And this is something you can build in partnership with your marketing operations team or other folks that manage your Martech stack. The other thing that you could do to really measure success is you can look at things around protected revenue, how your programs are actually impacting customer adoption maturity. You might also have an adoption score where you're actually looking at measuring product usage and whatnot. And this will give you some indications as far as what accounts might be at risk and how you could maybe potentially help them. You could also look at advocate growth. So this could be things around year-over-year growth over time. You could also look at event participation across some of your programs. And then if you're running a customer reference program, this could also be around deal acceleration, helping to influence new business as well as cross-sell deals. From a customer story perspective, if you're measuring your content and that piece of content over its life cycle, you could look at the different channels that you're driving that content through. So whether it's social, email, web, etc. You might also be running a customer awards program where you could look at what's the byproduct of that after your awards program is done, maybe celebrating those award winners and then turning that into additional assets down the road. Or if you're running a peer review program, it could be what is the cost per asset or the cost per review at the end of the day after you spent the money in your contracts and whatnot. And then the last one is looking ultimately at sort of engaged versus non-engaged advocates. And I think that goes hand in hand with sort of, advocate accounts versus those that don't have advocates and how that influences churn over time. So that hopefully gives you a framework to think about. And then the next one I want to just give you is something that you can take home today. And this is a customer marketing blueprint that you might be able to take certain elements. You might already have some of these programs that you're running as well, but this gives you a framework to build off of. So as you kind of think about this, as someone goes from left to right, the number of requirements or the things or the asks of a customer might increase over time. And so when you think about this from an advocacy standpoint, it might be engaging in a community. It might be attending a user group or a meetup, which are typically low barrier of entries where it doesn't take too much of their time. But it also could be including, customer references and peer reviews as you get a little bit further down the road, and these customers have been with you for a little bit longer. And then you can start to include some additional programs around running sort of an elite practitioner program, maybe something for an emerging leader where it could be teams that are managing teams of practitioners. You might also include a customer advisory board, and then ultimately having a customer awards as well as a customer story piece to what your team's remit does. And then as you add in some of your adoption programs, these could be things around like your email nurtures around onboarding through maturity. And then you could also look at in-product guides as well as voice of the customer feedback surveys and customer certifications. And then as sort of the backbone of all that, you might have work with your events team to run user conferences, regional roadshows, executive roundtables, and whatnot that your programs can plug into and your advocates can plug into. And then I would say at the very last phase, it's really being able to upsell and cross-sell your customers. But I think once you do everything else right, then it's when you have the permission to be able to sell them additional solutions and not before. So what this might look like from a Martech stack recommendation standpoint, these are a number of different technology partners and vendors that we've used over the years, as well as technologies that I know other customers have used that have been really successful with. So this is something that you might want to talk to them a little bit more detail about. But ultimately, I think at the end of the day, when you actually get customer marketing, it's done right. These are some of the things that begin to unlock for you. From our personal experience, we went from a team of about 6 to now over 17 members. We've been able to increase our budget and resources significantly over time. We've actually expanded our remit from 1 to over 8 different products and solutions. We've been able to create a center of excellence around all things customer marketing, really developing that as an industry foundation. We've also been fortunate enough to win a number of different industry awards and recognition. Our team members have been able to get promotions across the board, as well as helping them to increase their salary over time. So with that being said, I know I covered a lot of things, but I hope this gives you some of the foundational elements that you can start to think about if you're trying to build a customer marketing team within your organization, or you're looking to expand it or be able to prove your impact at the end of the day. So thank you so much. And if we have some time, I can help answer some additional questions.
Amazing. Thanks so much, Kevin. That was a great session. And I know there's lots of positive comments and a few kind of discussions going on in the chat. We've got a few questions. We're a little bit short on time, but I'm happy to kind of rattle through a few of them. So Ari Hoffman is saying, if you don't have the brand recognition, like, for example, Marketo, how would you recommend creating the type of visual identity and clout that your champions have?
I think it still goes hand in hand with sort of engaging your best advocates. I mean, I worked at startup companies where we only had about, a customer base of maybe 1,000 customers or 500. I think you work with what you have. And regardless of whatever your technology or solution is that you're selling, you're always going to have someone that is deeply passionate about your products and technology. And your job is really just be able to seek them out and give them a platform to help them shine. And it doesn't even have to be at a big level. It could be simply, giving them opportunities to write a blog post for you, to be featured more prominently on your website, to have their logo featured in different places. So that's just kind of an example of how that could work.
Yeah, absolutely. Some great comments there. So Grace is asking, I'm building a customer advocacy program from scratch. Do you recommend having a software solution to structure the program? If not, how would you recommend going about building something without that structure?
Yeah, it's a good question. I think that's the challenge. I think, you can look at a number of different things. I think it comes down to what are your core goals and what are you trying to spin up immediately, especially if you're a team of one or two. It could be challenging. And I'm not necessarily saying that you should be buying a bunch of technology, because I don't think you may not be using it all to its full advantage. And so it comes down to some of your core goals on what is it that you're trying to measure and track. I remember early days, I simply worked off of a spreadsheet, like a Google spreadsheet. And so eventually over time, you get a little bit more sophisticated. But I think it comes down to being able to crawl before you run. And so maybe really just evaluating with your team internally, what is it that you're trying to accomplish first? And then maybe talk to some of these vendors and see if it makes sense to partner. If not, it could be something that's homegrown and you do it yourself.
Great. So we have a final question as well from Christina. I know there's a lot of kind of comments and chit chat and people having their say in the chat. So Kevin, I'm not sure if you've got time, but if you want to jump into that after
Sure.
this, then there's a few more points there. But yeah, we'll wrap up with Christina's question, which is, it'd be really interesting to know how much the segmentation has helped Adobe find your ambassadors.
Yeah, I mean, we look at it from a number of different ways. We kind of classify it as sort of like enterprise customers versus sort of growth or smaller size organizations. But oftentimes, especially when you think about it, the experience that you're having across different segments, the customer experience journey could be very similar, or it also could be the same thing. So even if you have accounts that are very small, or you have ones that are very large, I think there's an underlying shared experience that these customers are going through. It could be a pain point that you're trying to solve. And so I think what ultimately is helpful is when you start to have these customer interviews and you start to talk to your customers more directly, this is when you're going to start to unlock those deeper conversations on what can you do specifically to help drive the needle, to help them get more adopted and see value.
Absolutely. So massive thank you again, Kevin. Yeah, in terms of kind of people touching base with you further, is there somewhere you'd prefer for people to reach out?
Yeah, I mean, if you guys want to connect on LinkedIn, if you want to do a more personalized deep dive discussion based on your own use case, I'm happy to chat with you guys a little bit more. And I really, my mission here is I want to be able to share this information as more widely as possible so we can continue to grow this community. I think we're still very much in our infancy, and I definitely want to see more customer marketers, have that attention and get that visibility with their companies.
Great to hear. Perfect. Well, thanks very much. And yeah, stay tuned, guys, because we're straight on to the next session.
Great. Thanks again.
Hi everyone, and welcome to the Customer Marketing Summit. Thank you for joining us. Just before we dive into the next session, I want to let you know about a very special launch that is happening today. We are delighted to announce the launch of our next exclusive certification, teaching you everything you need to know about customer advisory boards. We have partnered with the wonderful Bree Bunzel, the global head of customer marketing at Dropbox, who will host this course. If you caught Bree's presentation earlier today, you will know that she has a wealth of experience to share. In this certification, Bree will outline what it takes to build a world-class customer advisory board, with her insights serving as the perfect platform to help you establish a customer-first mindset. She will also lift the lid on how CABs highlight how customers are using your products, how to secure buy-in from key stakeholders, and much, much more. I'm also delighted to share an exclusive discount with you all today. If you register within the next 48 hours, use the code CMS2021 for a handy 10% off. But be quick, this code will expire at 6 p.m. Pacific time on Friday. And now, on to the next talk.
The Influitive team have helped us transform our customer case studies into first-person narratives from the voice of the customer.
Influitive helps me at scale discover and nurture my advocates. I can build bite-sized challenges to discover how they're using our product, what their interests are, and also have some fun along the way.
Influitive is our strategic partner that helps us discover, nurture, and mobilize our customers.
Hi there, and welcome to my session titled Advocate Communities, a Product Marketer's Secret Weapon. My name is Ruddock, and I'm a Product Marketing Manager at Influitive. I'll start with a quick intro, a bit about me. I studied filmmaking, computer science, molecular biology, and neuroscience. I have a variety of interests and hobbies. I love making music, DJing, studying philosophy, playing basketball, listening to hip hop, and reading. So that's a variety of things. Does it necessarily equal product marketing? Well, not exactly, but product marketing, much like customer marketing, is a job with many hats. You're a grower, a creator, a builder, sometimes a firefighter, and maybe even a wizard. So next up, I'll just talk a little bit about Influitive, what Influitive is. 11 years ago, we pioneered the concept and technology behind advocate communities. Our customers have recorded over 100 million acts of advocacy on our platform, and we've generated $1 billion of value for those customers. We're recognized as category leaders across TrustRadius, G2 Crowd, and Gartner, and we get to work with some really amazing brands. So today, I'll talk a little bit about customer marketing. I'll talk a little bit about product marketing. I'll talk about how each of these roles would use an advocate community. I'll talk about how we at Influitive use our advocate community, and then I'll wrap everything up. So before we begin, I just want to tell a quick story. And here's the context. So a key customer really wanted to see best-in-class work. And in other words, we needed to show them a really good demo. And we decided to go beyond our regular demo environment. So we put out an ask to the community. And we said, can we show off your hard work to a fellow customer? i.e., can we demo your instance? The response was a simple yes or no, and we gave everybody a deadline of midnight. And here were the results. With one request that took me about 2 minutes to design and publish, and in about 3 hours, we had 32 unique logos say yes. So 32 customers told us that we could demo their instance to another customer. So it's pretty impressive. Key takeaway, an engaged advocate community allows you to rapidly recruit customers when you need them most. So, begs the question, what is an advocate community? How does it work? Well, the first thing you need to understand is incentives, right? Why does anybody take action? Is it that they're trying to climb a leaderboard? Are they trying to earn points so that they can get a reward? Do they care about certain badges signifying that they're an expert, right? Everybody has a reason that motivates them, and that's really important. The next thing is activities, right? Customer engagement is all about taking action, about doing stuff. Customers need stuff to do, and that is all published inside of an advocate community. And what's cool is that you can actually chain these activities together into journeys. And you can use these journeys to educate customers, to onboard customers, to teach them things, to run competitions or contests. You can really use it for whatever you want. And that is a very, very useful flexibility. So an advocate community combines two things. One is technology and the other is methodology. So at the core of any community is engagement. And there's a couple of stakeholders who really, really care about this engagement, right? There's customer experience, customer success, and customer marketing. And there's some tech that is important to power this. You need the ability to target content and segment. You need the ability to personalize that content. You need gamification to increase engagement with that content. And then you need recognition and rewards at the end to kind of close the loop and keep people coming back, right? Any product needs to be habit forming, and an advocate community is no different. So at Influitive, we use our advocate community for a variety of things. We use it for customer engagement. We use it to build community. We use it for all of our customer experience efforts. We use it to increase loyalty, and we use it to generate advocacy. And so why is that important? Well, if you think a little bit about the traditional marketing funnel, right? You have awareness and interest, consideration, and then eventually purchase. You end up with a new customer, and that new customer starts as a user and then progresses to an enthusiast. Eventually they become a loyal customer, and finally an advocate. And advocates are an amazing resource for your business because they can help you grow more efficiently, and they can help you retain customers better. And so if we just focus on the marketing funnel for a second, right? Customer advocates will use word of mouth to increase awareness, but they will also increase trust, right? So you'll get more people in the funnel, you'll get them moving through the funnel faster, and you'll get better conversion rates throughout. Customer advocacy is a no-brainer for businesses. Inside our advocate community, we drive customer engagement, we build customer community, we enhance our customers' experience, we deepen customer loyalty, and we boost customer advocacy. So customer marketing and product marketing are natural collaborators. The roles are distinct, but they are very mutually beneficial. So as a product marketer, I focus a lot on messaging, positioning, competitive intelligence, and my companion customer marketer, who I work very closely with, is a little bit more focused on generating references and customer advocacy. So why does the partnership make sense? Well, customer marketers and product marketers actually care about the same things. You want product adoption. You want customers to be successful with your product. You want them to retain as customers. You want them to spend more to grow the share of wallet. And you also want to enable them. And you want to enable your sales team as well. So enablement works both ways. Customer marketing and product marketing collaborate on a bunch of stuff at Influitive. This is a list. It's not an exhaustive list. But we both work together on persona development, customer engagement, marketing campaigns, messaging and positioning, product launches, collecting customer feedback, generating third-party reviews and testimonials, relaying the voice of the customer to key stakeholders. This is a really important part of the job. Finding speakers for events, and much more. So in Influitive, what's cool is that this actually all happens in one place. And that's right, you probably guessed already, it is an advocate community. And this is our advocate community. We have all of our customers in here, and we use it to engage with them every day. So today we find ourselves at the Customer Marketing Summit. So how does a customer marketer use an advocate community? Well, one thing that they'll probably do is research. So persona development, CSAT and NPS scores, CX surveys, getting company feedback, and also trying to figure out, where is a customer in their journey with you? How knowledgeable are they? Do they understand the product? Do they understand their use cases? This is kind of important stuff that you can ascertain with an advocate community. We also use it for recruitment. So we recruit for our customer advisory boards, we recruit for user groups, we recruit event speakers, webinar presenters, and we grow our reference pool with the advocate community. We have a great customer, Wiley, and here's just sort of a little blurb of how they use it. So they've been able to quickly fuel more than 50 product development projects and power 85 pilots of new functionality. With so much customer input, they saw a 130% jump in NPS. That's Nicole, the VP of Marketing at Wiley, and those stats are pretty impressive. Another thing that we use the advocate community for is reviews and testimonials. We gather third-party reviews for G2, TrustRadius, and Gartner, but you can also gather them for Trustpilot and Amazon. We get product and service testimonials that we use throughout our marketing. We get lots of amazing customer stories. Customers have great stories to tell, and an advocate community is an excellent way to get those stories from customers. We also get them to help us with case studies and with ebooks. Another thing you can do is improve your reach on social media. So obviously everybody wants to increase their brand awareness, and you do this by boosting shares and retweets on desired content, by bumping up the comments and likes on posts. And of course, you need to measure the amplification and engagement with this stuff. And so we do all of this with our advocate community. Our advocates share content all the time for us. And they also go and engage with content that we want other people to see. Our customer marketer also manages our entire reference program from the advocate community. She manages the reference pool. She gets requests from our reps in Salesforce. These requests actually automatically populate a gamified recruitment activity in the community. And we can further target those activities with vertical, use case, product, location, and more. And that's great because it allows us to kind of personalize the ask and recruit the best reference for that opportunity. Finally, we use the community for referrals. So of course, we generate new leads to build our sales pipeline, but we also find new members for the community with peer referrals. And then at Influitive, we have a separate community just for employees. And we use referrals in that community to find new hires. And finally, of course, you can also get referrals for partners that you should work with. So this all takes place in our advocate community. We use it for all of these things, and we use it every single day without fail. Many of you are product marketers or are interested in product marketing. And so you might be wondering how to use an advocate community. Or put another way, how do I, as a product marketer, impact the product cycle? Well, the first thing I need is game mechanics. This helps me propel engagement with what I want customers to engage with. So we have levels, and levels are sort of set into a progression. And as customers progress through different levels, they actually unlock access to new content and new opportunities to engage with our brand. We also use badges, and badges are a symbol of an achievement. So anytime a customer achieves a milestone in the community, they usually get a badge of some sort to signify that. We also have a leaderboard. So as you earn points, you climb the leaderboard. You can see I'm currently 33rd in our employee leaderboard. And finally, we also offer points. So almost every activity taken in the community earns you points, and those points can be used to redeem rewards. So customer engagement is required throughout the entire product lifecycle, from ideation to design, to testing, to launch, and to adoption. So ideation is a really, really important part of exploring the problem space as a product team. So we get customers to submit ideas. We post a gamified activity in the community. Customers get points for submitting product ideas, and they get points every idea they submit. So that's awesome. It allows us to generate more ideas more quickly. What we also do is get customers to vote on their favorite ideas. This helps our team prioritize what to build. And every time somebody votes, they can also earn points for that too. Once our team has taken that voting to prioritize a feature to work on, we'll usually put out a survey to gather further requirements, to figure out, what must be included in an MVP of this product, what's a nice to have. We really want to explore the problem space, and we can direct people to surveys and, again, reward points for engaging with them. We can also have customers book an interview with our design team. So this is a big part of design, right, is actually getting firsthand feedback. And so if you book an interview, you can earn points for doing that as well. Next up, we'll usually have some sort of prototype. We'll direct customers to the prototype, again, in the community. And if customers test the prototype, they'll earn points for doing so. Finally, what we can do is we can take all of the people who we've engaged with up to this point, those who submitted the idea, those who voted on the idea, those who tested the prototype, booked an interview with our design team, and we can put them all into a group, and we can target that group to our beta. And so the beta will contain opportunities to get feedback on the product, and those opportunities will be awarded points as well. And we'll also take all of those people and put them in their own private forum where they can discuss, with members of our product team and with each other what they think of the beta. Next, it's time for launch. And what's nice about an advocate community is it's a great place to have rich content and to have people engage with that content in a sort of community fashion. So we'll post every new release in our community. We'll direct people to the release with sort of a gamified request. If people comment on the release or give feedback on the release, they'll actually earn points for doing so. And we can even have them share marketing materials. So say, for example, we have a press release that comes out with the launch. We can get people to share that release, and every time they share it, they will earn points for doing so. And next up is adoption. So one of the things that we like to do when we release a robust feature is schedule a webinar where we can kind of dive in and answer people's questions in real time. So one of the things that we'll do is in the community itself, we'll actually host the webinar, and we'll get signups for the webinar, and we'll gamify those signups. And then we'll also gamify the attendance. So you can earn points not only for registering for the webinar, but you can also earn points for attending the webinar. And you can earn even more points if you engage in real time and ask questions. So lots of incentives to engage with this adoption phase. And then what's nice is that, as customers are helping our product team and helping me, they earn points. And this is awesome because those points can be used for rewards like gift cards. And here we are back in the community. This is a beta challenge that I posted just a week ago. And this is an announcement for our spring 21 release. So it's important to keep in mind that members have different motivations. Some are educators. They're there to help others learn. Some are validators. They're there to check out your roadmap and tell you what makes sense and what doesn't make sense. Some are status seekers. They're there to improve their own reach, their own personal brand, and kind of show off network. And then some are collaborators, right? The really strategic thinkers, those who want to see you succeed and are willing to sit down for hours to discuss how that success might work. Rewards aren't one size fits all either. Some members want gift cards, others would like to donate to charity, and still others might actually want to attend industry events. For some, learning and development is the most important thing, and so helping them grow professionally with rewards is a great opportunity. Take David Meerman Scott's book, Fanocracy, for example, an excellent rewards catalog edition. All right, so that's a lot, but I'll just quickly summarize everything that I've talked about today. First thing is that, I as a product marketer work very closely with our customer marketer, and all the work that we do is in this one platform. It's our advocate community. We use the community for a variety of things, but we drive customer engagement, we build community, we enhance customer experience, we deepen customer loyalty, and we boost advocacy. We perform valuable research, we recruit customers efficiently when we need them, we generate reviews and testimonials, we boost our reach on social media, we get the right references for the right opportunity, and we receive referrals, not only to grow our business, but also to grow our team. We also get a ton of value out of our advocate community as a product team. We capture more feedback and ideas, we design better products by talking to customers, we get more volunteers for testing, we strengthen our launches with rich content and social shares, and we continuously drive adoption. It really is a secret weapon, and I don't know that I would be able to do my job as well as I do without it. And what's so cool is that it's all powered by Influitive. So I get to work with the people who make this every day. It's awesome. Last but not least, I highly recommend that everybody check out our amazing customers. There's a bunch of them speaking at this event. They're all experts. Everybody can learn from them. So please go and listen to what they have to say. And that's it. Thank you so much. It's been great having the opportunity to speak to you, and I will now take some time to answer your questions. Cheers.
Hello everyone. Thank you so much for joining the Customer Marketing Summit today. We hope you're enjoying the session so far. We know there is a huge amount of talent within this field, so we wanted to give a special shout out to a few superstars with the Customer Marketing Excellence Award. We have been overwhelmed by the number of nominations we have received, so thank you to everyone who took the time to submit their nominee. It was a difficult one to narrow down, but I'm delighted to share with you now the runners-up for the award. And now for the big announcement. I'm delighted to confirm that the winner of the Customer Marketing Excellence Award April 2021 is... A huge congratulations are in order. Now to hear a few words from our worthy winner.
Hey everybody, my name is Trish Levison Bautista and I'm a Senior Customer Marketing Manager at Gong. Once upon a time when I was still in high school, I asked my dad, what should I be? What should my career path be? And he in turn asked me what I liked. And I was like, I like storytelling. And he replied, marketing has storytelling. I told him I like writing. I told him I like bringing people together. I like creativity and communications and psychology. And he was like, marketing has all of that. So fast forward many years later, here I am. I've been in customer marketing for almost 8 years and it's been a blast. So thank you, Dad. And thank you so much to the organizing team for giving me this award. The credit really goes to the team at Gong, especially to my marketing leaders, Sheena Badani, Udi Ledergor, and Julian Savage. Without you creating such a creative, experimental, proactive environment, I wouldn't be here today. And of course, to everyone at Gong who is in charge of creating raving fans, so that means everybody. Everyone from the customer success team to product marketing. You are all responsible for creating such happy customers. And me as a customer marketer, I'm so grateful for that. And it makes my job a lot easier. And lastly, thank you to the Product Marketing Alliance. Usually customer marketers are behind the scenes. We avoid the spotlight because we prefer to uplift our own customers and put them in the pedestal. So this is such a great opportunity and such a great program. Thank you for this event and thank you for everything that you do.
Hello, wherever you are joining us from today, we want to say a huge welcome to our global community. We hope you're enjoying the Customer Marketing Summit. I also want to send out an extra special thank you to all our sponsors, partners, speakers, and participants who together have made this event possible. Their sessions are bursting with insights to help you level up. But remember, the learning doesn't stop here. If you haven't already, you can upgrade your pass to include access to all today's sessions on demand. Or you can become a PMA member and benefit from unlimited access to exclusive templates, frameworks, and our entire library of talks from our live events. And remember, have your questions at the ready. Simply post your question in the comments section and get awesome advice from an expert in the field. What's not to love about that? So now, on to the next talk.
Fantastic. Hey, everyone. This is Andrew Sevilla, and today we're going to be kicking off a panel for the Customer Marketing Summit. Our panel today is going to be discussing, covering off on the role and remit of customer marketing. We've got some amazing panelists, and we're super excited to share our stories with you and our insight and our advice and things to think about. So why don't we kick things off with intros. So I'm Andrew Sevilla, and I'm the Director of Customer Marketing for a company called Sage Intacct. Lauren?
Hi, everyone. My name is Lauren Lawson, and I am a Senior Product Marketing Manager with Doctor.com, recently acquired by Ganey.
And I'm Katlin Hess, Director of Customer Marketing at Phenom.
Hey everyone, I'm Charlotte Lilley, Head of Global Customer Marketing at Coupa Software.
Hey all, I'm Matt Fitter. I'm a Senior Program Manager for Customer Marketing for IBM's Artificial Intelligence portfolio.
Wow, we've got a pretty diverse set of folks on our panel today, representing a pretty wide range of companies. So that's good to hear. Why don't we kick things off with, if everyone wouldn't mind answering a question a bit about yourself. So how did you get involved in customer marketing? What was the starting point for you? Lauren, do you want to start us off?
Yeah. Well, I actually came up from client success and started getting involved with the product marketing team. Product and customer marketing are within the same department at Doctor.com. So started getting involved with them to help create resources, and then a spot opened up on the team and I was able to move over. And it's just been great ever since. It's been such a fun ride, and I've loved getting to know the product and customer marketing world and find myself in this great career.
Very nice, very nice. How about you, Katlin?
So I was managing sort of all of marketing at my last company, and we had a big gap when it came to customer marketing that I sort of started to fill in, and I really enjoyed it. And so when I applied at Phenom, I actually applied for a different job that ultimately the recruiter and I were like, yeah, this is not the right fit. But she had me talk to the VP, who's now my direct supervisor. And he said, well, tell me what you're doing and what you like doing. And he said, you get really excited when you talk about the customer marketing stuff you're doing. And I said, well, yeah, that's my favorite part of my job. And so he said, well, we don't have a role right now, but we might in the future. And then 2 weeks later, they had a customer marketing role. So it was sort of a destiny that brought me to customer marketing.
It's funny how things work out like that sometimes, huh? All right. And Charlotte, you and I go back a ways, but fill us in. What's your background?
Well, I can't really claim destiny. That's pretty amazing, Katlin. But I was in sales, and as we were growing, I was at a company called Box, and people kept coming to the sales team saying, we need a customer, to talk to another customer. Does anyone have a customer to talk to press? And I would always be like, my customer, I want them to talk to, do whatever, because I knew it would help me in my relationship with them. And so eventually they were like, hey, do you want to come over and run customer programs, is what we were calling it. And at the time I was like, what's that? Like, I had no idea what this was. This was like over 10 years ago. And it's like, I just decided, sure, why not? I'll make a transition from sales into marketing. I still didn't want to leave the company, but still wanted to learn something new. And similarly to you all, now I've been in this field for over 10 years. So I'm loving it so far.
Fantastic. Yeah, I know you go back a long ways, Charlotte, and you've got a ton of great experience, and can't wait to hear more about you and your experience. So Matt, why don't you tell us a bit about you?
Yeah, definitely. So I think you'll hear through our panel today that there's really no direct path to customer marketing. Not to give a fourth different story, but I've had a variety of experiences at IBM through product marketing, through content marketing, and then through sales enablement. So I kind of take each experience with me to the customer marketing realm. And it's really ultimately about defining the success that we have with customers, because at the end of the day, we're selling to individuals. So it's really important to get those stories across and have that trickle down to sales, to win new business, to marketing, to develop more customer stories, and to, as Charlotte mentioned, to PR and comms as well.
Fantastic. Yeah, and I've got a similar background as most of you. I wasn't in customer marketing, 15 years ago. I was actually in kind of community and supporting PR, and then the role way back when didn't really exist, and so it was interesting to be able to kind of be a part of the early stages of defining the customer marketing, customer advocacy role. And it's super fun. I have to say, it's probably the most fun role that I've had in any professional situation. So looking forward to hearing more about you and how you've all been able to kind of navigate your careers and the things that you do and what you find important. So why don't we kick things off with a question around how do you define customer marketing in your company? And I think this is one of the things we talked about on our prep call was, if you ask 15 different people, they might give you 15 different definitions for what customer marketing is. So why don't we try to understand some of the nuances and think about how you think about customer marketing in your role and within your company. Charlotte, do you want to take this one? Do you want to kick us off?
Sure, I'll be in our company. You're so right, Andrew, that it's really difficult to define. And even the role itself, right? People are like, you say you're in customer marketing, they say, oh, customer success. I was like, no, but here's what it's like. And so usually what I say is in one sentence, it's we help tell stories through our customers, or we help tell our company's story through our customers. And that it's so hard to sum up everything. But when I have to lay it out strategically for like our CMO or someone, I always say customer marketing has 3 pillars. There's an advocacy pillar, there's an executive pillar, and then there's this kind of life cycle or install-based pillar. And so on the advocacy side, it's your reference program, it's getting customers involved in all the different opportunities, it's case studies and stories and all of that good stuff. For us, the executive pillar is all about executive communications, executive relationships, and executive programs. And then on the lifecycle side, it's also how do you market to customers? And what I like about lifecycle being kind of like paired up with the rest of customer marketing is that you take those stories from those customers and then you tell them back to the customers who are maybe new. And so you can help expand, you can help, sell new products, you can help people understand new ways of using your product. And so to me, it kind of all ties together. So in a couple words, so that's kind of how we define it. And at Coupa, we've developed a charter as well, and we call it One Customer, One Voice, so that people sort of remember what you're trying to do here. It's like, when you're trying to consolidate or when you're trying to make sure people go through customer marketing for a reference or anything like that, it's like, how can we keep this at top of mind? So it's like one customer, one voice. We want to come as one voice to the customer, and we want their voice to be as big as possible. So that's kind of how I think about it. And I know it's not a simple way to say it, but that's how we define it.
You know, I think the 3 pillars approach, Charlotte, is a really good, smart way of thinking about how do you structure, how do you think about customer marketing. But Katlin, I know you have a different definition, so we'd love to hear it.
Sure. Yeah. So I feel like Charlotte tied it up nicely in a bow. I love that one customer, one voice. And I feel like that's a lot of the work that I'm doing as we sort of build customer marketing as a program at Phenom, is how do we bring all of those teams together that are interfacing with our customers, make sure that we have a clear, consistent message. Prior to me joining, or really as I was ramping up, one of the things I noticed was we had a lot of departments that were communicating with customers, but they weren't necessarily talking to each other. And so the advantage I have is that I'm talking to all of them and I'm able to see sort of that big picture. What are you sending and when and how are you saying it? And then let's take a step back and how do we want to communicate strategically? So a lot of what I'm doing, I also have 3 pillars, but they're a little bit different. Is supporting adoption and partnering with some of our other teams on how do we get that adoption best practice content out to our customers. Renewals, so supporting our sales team and customer success. They have sort of a shared renewal goal. And then finally upsell. So similar to your, I think it was your 3rd pillar, Charlotte, how do we help them grow? How do we help them expand? And communicate that value back to our customers. And then we do also have a customer stories program, but it's actually managed out of our content marketing team. And so I'm sort of the assistant is the best way to say it. I'm bridging that gap between our client success and our account management team and helping surface some of those stories and then passing it off. We have someone on our content team who had been doing it for a couple of years prior to me joining, and she's just really great at building those relationships. So I'm working to help foster that as well.
Excellent answer, Katlin. And like I said, you ask, a couple of different people, you're going to get a couple of different answers. So, I think my program probably aligns pretty closely with Charlotte's in terms of having those 3 pillars, thinking, a lot every day about how do we capture more stories? How do we leverage those stories to attract prospective buyers? How do we continue to feed the PR machine and make sure that AR has, customers that they can tap into. We're always looking for new stories to promote. And really, for me, it's about shining a light on our customers, right? Making them the heroes and helping to build their brand, both personally and professionally, hopefully. And so, yeah, I mean, and what I feel like is it's kind of the role has expanded outside of just supporting sales and marketing. And that's kind of what I wanted to get into next is, how does customer marketing fit into the wider organization? So if you think about not just the folks that you might interact with on a day-to-day basis, but across the organization, across the business, who are some of your internal customers and how do you work with them? And what are some of the things you do to support them and their success? So I think this is another one where we wanted to tap into Charlotte, but before we get to Charlotte, Lauren, would you like to help us understand your opinion on this?
Yeah, absolutely. So as I said, so at Doctor, we were a lean team startup. So product and customer marketing was one department. And we worked really closely with the digital marketing team, with sales, client success, product, engineering. Sometimes we were more product managers, sometimes we were product marketing, and then the next day we were customer marketing. So it was worked with a lot of different teams, which was part of what is so great. And kind of similar to what Katlin was talking about earlier about kind of being that linchpin of collaboration between all those. And really, I also love what you said, Charlotte, one customer, one voice, because that's so true. And keeping everybody on message, keeping everybody with the same voice. So, I think in terms of the actual customer marketing, we worked most closely with client success, obviously, and sales. And I think that the kind of combination of customer and product marketing was so helpful because it's so easy to get disconnected when you're not on the phone with the clients every day, when you're not, you don't have your boots on the ground. So getting to stay in touch with those directors of client success and even with the client success managers, and even sometimes call listening when you have time, is so helpful. So we work really closely with them to kind of just stay in touch and make sure that we are representing the customer and communicating with the customer properly. And then I'm trying to remember the other part of this question.
Yeah, how do you fit into the wider org? What are some of the other, parts of the company that you might support, and how do you do that?
Yes. So in terms of, I think for the most part, I covered how do we fit into the wider org, but in terms of who else do we support? I think it's also keeping sales and CS, a lot of keeping them on the same message, and keeping that consistent, because sometimes those teams can get a little disparate, and just making sure that the story of the company, of the product, and the story of who our customers are kind of stays consistent between those teams. And that's pretty much how it operated within Doctor. So
great. I mean, I couldn't agree with you more about the tight relationship between customer marketing and product marketing. I mean, it's so clear and apparent that product marketing folks want to use customer stories and examples and stats and that sort of thing, quotes, all sorts of kind of customer assets in the material that they're producing. And so having a strong relationship between the two teams, it just makes perfect sense. But maybe Charlotte, do you have a couple other examples that you can share with us?
Yeah, I was just thinking about that. So at Coupa, customer marketing rolls up to the VP of product marketing, but customer marketing and product marketing aren't on the same team really. But we of course have that very strong alignment. To your point, that especially when we're developing stories, we always have a product marketer who's a part of that process. So once we've identified a story, we choose the product marketer who's the right product subject matter expert who can join us and actually help craft that story. I think that poses sort of one of the challenges with being customer marketing, is that you're kind of expected to be an expert in every area in a way. It's like, well, we're writing all the stories, and so, but can we really have that deep of knowledge on like 18 products, for example, if we have that many, right? And so it's like, how do you best leverage the relationships within the company and help them help you? And so product marketing is a huge partner, I think, for all of the companies that I've been at. It's funny too, it just depends on the company. So when I was at Box, I was attached at the hip with our comms person. So we would meet on a daily basis, and really there was so much demand for press with customers that was my strongest relationship. And of course, I always joke that like, sales are your takers and customer success are your partners. So it's like you're partnering with customer success on the regular as well. And then sales kind of like just takes what you create. And it's like, sorry for any sales people out there. I was one, so I can make that joke. But that's what it kind of feels like, where you're like, okay, what else can we give to sales? You need to package it up really easily, make it interesting for them, and get through the noise, because there's always a lot coming at sales. So yeah, for us, it's kind of partnering with customer success, partnering with other parts of marketing. Product marketing is probably the strongest, at least for us right now, or comms. And then, what we can package up and provide to sales to make it, easy for them. And so we've done some pretty cool stuff, or I've done some pretty cool stuff over the number of years, just with contests and different ways to engage with sales. And especially coming from that world, it's like, you kind of need to know what makes them like pay attention. Of course, money, contests, but then just, I think we don't give enough credit to making information easily accessible. So like putting it into one spreadsheet, or something that they can print out and put on their desk, or making story flashcards, for them to memorize the stories, things like that. Just little touches actually help with that. So those are some of the, partnerships that I've experienced over the past number of years.
Perfect. Yeah. So we've talked about product marketing. Sales is definitely an internal customer. PR, like I mentioned earlier, analyst relations. I have one other example I was going to share, which is, we're always thinking about customer success and customer satisfaction and that sort of thing. And how do we measure those things? And what are the signals that customers are sending us to indicate whether or not they're having a good experience? And one thing that I pay really close attention to is the online reviews. And so when a review comes in, if it's less than stellar, I will find out who the customer success manager or rep is, and then also bring in somebody from our support team so that they can address that customer's challenges, whether it be training or just an issue with the product. And then hopefully that can kind of change the customer's experience, and we can turn them into one of our advocates. So, but I think we've touched on a lot of different areas across the organization. So why don't we transition now into, how do we measure ourselves, right? We're always thinking about what is the return on the investment, right? The company is investing in us, and maybe we're investing in some of our partners and some of our tools that we're using. So if you think about, maybe on a quarterly or an annual basis, what are some of the maybe OKRs or success metrics that you're tracking and that you're reporting back to your management or to the business as a whole? Matt, I know this is something that you feel passionately about. So why don't you share your thoughts on this topic?
Yeah, definitely. And just to echo my fellow panelists, those OKRs and metrics are different depending on the relationship that you build. So your OKRs for CS or customer success might be different than your product marketing manager or support as well. So I'll continue the theme of 3, and I measure success on an annual and quarterly basis through 3 distinct categories. So first, from a customer perspective, second, through the marketing lens, and then third, through sales. First, from the customer's perspective, Andrew, I know you just touched upon this, but I'm measuring success through Net Promoter Score, or NPS, on product usage. So some of my product marketers look at more review sites. I'm looking at more of the implementation and likeliness to recommend a product to a colleague once we've actually sold the product. So I have quarterly NPS targets to exceed each quarter. And at the end of the day, as I mentioned, we're all selling to actual individuals, although the buyer of the product, like a CIO or CTO, might hold the wallet of a division. That's often different than the actual end user. So it's critical to exceed customer satisfaction numbers each quarter. And then a little about the marketing perspective, I have a specific target around the number of customer references to hit. So I know there's always an appetite, as we've discussed, from analyst relations, from PR, from sales, obviously, to get more references and more references. So I have a customer reference target to hit, a number around event frequency as well as acts of advocacy. And those acts can be in forms of a client speaking externally at an event, for example. So it's so critical to get that one voice out there and showcase our customers in the light that they should be shown, and the delight that they're experiencing from a variety of different products. And then now these OKRs are all critical to helping sales teams win more business and delight customers through NPS and produce more customer references. So it's definitely like full life cycle in terms of how these metrics work together. And I have OKRs from the sales perspective in terms of total pipeline. Marketing has assisted in progressing. So deals that have expedited the decision date or increase in value or increase in sales stage. Also OKRs around closing and then building business for the company as well. So that's a little bit about defining OKRs. They may be different within your organization depending on where customer marketing fits into the larger organization, but it's really, to go back to the relationship standpoint, really key to bring everyone together, have a seat at the table to define how we're going to define success depending on the relationship as well.
It's an amazing answer, Matthew. I think you clearly and concisely articulated. How do we measure ourselves? What are we thinking about? What do we bring to the table? Who do we need? All that sort of stuff. And in order to be able to produce all those wonderful outcomes that you just described, there's this thing about recruiting folks into your program and getting them activated as advocates, and having them engage in these active advocacy, which you very eloquently described. So just curious for the panel, what are some of the avenues? What are some of the approaches, I guess, that you take to maybe identifying folks that you want to bring into your advocacy program? How do you do the outreach? Do you have maybe the customer success rep or broker an intro for you? Anybody want to chime in and share their experience or thoughts about recruiting and kind of onboarding folks into your advocacy program? All right. Well, I can tell you, for myself, I read the reviews. We get reviews just about every day. So I'm looking at those, and if those folks aren't already in our advocacy program, I'll do a little searching around in our CRM system and kind of find out some demographics about that customer. How long have they been with us? What products are they using? What has their NPS score historically been? Do we have a strong relationship already, maybe with the account rep? And sometimes I'll ask the account rep to broker that intro for me, send a warm email on my behalf, kind of describing who I am and what my role is. And I've found that I've had, a considerable amount of success with that. Sometimes I'll just pull lists and start, reaching out to folks, and it's almost like you cast a wide net, and then the folks who are interested, they respond and they say, yeah, I'd love to be a part of your program. Let's get on a phone call and you can share more details with me. And as I mentioned earlier, I always position this as I'm looking for opportunities to promote you as a thought leader or an industry expert within your space. And so I kind of appeal to people's let's call it ego, right? I want to help them gain more visibility. And I've found that seems to help a lot. The other place that I've had a lot of success with bringing folks into my advocacy or reference program is through the big annual, customer conference, when you get thousands of folks together and you can just meet, literally hundreds of people over the course of a couple of days and sort of pitch your program and hey, by the way, if you fill out a review, you'll get the $25 gift card or whatever it might be. Hey, we've got a booth over here where we're doing some interviews with folks on camera. Would you like to, join us for that? And so, so that's been a big success for me. And then, meetups and, we've been doing a lot of virtual meetups this year. So I have the reg list for that, and I can attach my, my invitation to something that they're already participating in, right? So that's been a big success for me, is if there's something happening, big company event, and I have a group of customers that are coming, I can kind of tie the two together. And so we've been able to recruit, a couple thousand folks into our advocacy program at this point. And, so yeah, anybody else have any thoughts or feelings about, appropriate ways to try to attract folks to be a part of your advocacy program?
I have one thing that I think probably a lot of people listening will have the same sort of thought is many of us are just one person or just have a very small team. And so it's like, how do we scale getting more advocates in our programs? Because it's really hard to one-off have conversations with everyone as much as we want to, and we want to connect with them and everything. But so I've found things like creating a deck, just like a short deck, 1 or 2 slides that describes the opportunities available to them in a way that makes sense and in a way that's like, what are the benefits to them? And then you can go around and do a roadshow and enable your sales team and your customer success team to speak to these points and bring them into the presentations they're already having with their customers. So on the success side, of course, it's the quarterly business reviews. They should be including that slide and having that conversation each time. And on the sales side, they can use it as a way to say, hey, once you're a customer, I'll introduce you to this team who gets you, all these cool opportunities. So it's a benefit of being a customer for us. So I think I'm always trying to think about scale and how I can have other people do that for me. And then it's like, it gives them an opportunity to build a relationship and do a good one, for their customer themselves. And then also we get to benefit from it because they're then passing us those customers. And, I think another cool thing to do too is to create a case study of your own customer. So if you've done, a number of things with a customer, actually put that together as if it's its own case study. And then you can attach that to those slides. And they say, and by the way, look at this customer. What we did, we made a video because they wrote a book. So we promoted their book for them. We posted on our social channels to our community. And so it really puts all of that, it can be a little bit, what's the word? It's hard to describe these opportunities, especially when there's like a bunch where you're like, oh, you could be a reference, you could talk to press, you could do a story. They're like, whoa, these are a lot of things. But when you show like how we're actually supporting a customer through their journey and their personal kind of interests, then they're like, oh, I see what you did with them. Okay, that's really cool. So those are just a couple things that I think are really helpful.
Charlotte, it's really important for us to celebrate our wins and our successes. And, I love the idea of putting together maybe a customer advocate life cycle story, right? Where you're kind of documenting their journey from closed won to taking a sales reference to, doing a case study, doing a video, being a part of the advocacy program and documenting that. Because it's one thing for us to try to describe it in words, but if you actually have it on paper, and you can put that in front of your prospective advocates, I think it really drives home exactly what this program is all about. And then the other thing that you brought up, I think maybe Matt, you mentioned this too, is it's almost like a menu, right? Like it's all these different options and ways that you can be involved, whatever fits for you, whatever you're most comfortable with. Some companies have corporate guidelines where they kind of can't do certain things. And so, it's almost like, here's a list of 7 things. You tell me what you're comfortable with, and, we'll try to find you, opportunities to engage. And so, I think that one pager also should be a quick description of what your program's all about. Maybe there's you're using some tools that the more the customer is involved with your advocacy program, the more recognition they get, the more maybe points they earn, that sort of thing. So if you can put all that down on paper, and it does take, like you said, Charlotte, it takes a little bit of extra effort to kind of pull all that together and get it into your your corporate template and make sure the logos and all that stuff are right. But it really helps as you're sending out your invitations if you can attach that one-pager document that sort of describes your program. Great. Okay. Well, I think we've covered a lot of ground. We still have a little bit of time left, but for companies that maybe don't have an advocacy or reference program up and running, they've done some reading, they've done some research, they understand the power and the importance of the voice of the customer, and they're thinking about launching a customer marketing program. What are some of the things they should be thinking about? What are some of the tools they should be considering? What are some of the best practices? Who are some of the people they should be speaking to besides the people on this panel, of course? So I hate to keep going back to you, Charlotte, but why don't you fill us in a little bit on, what are some of the things that companies should be thinking about as they're considering launching a customer advocacy, customer marketing program?
I can definitely start us off, but I know, because we all talked before this, that everyone has some good ideas. And part of the reason why this question even came up was like, oh, well, we know people are in the audience and people are in this position where it's like, I was just given this, or I'm now stepping into this role. And so really, what do I do with it? And I think the thing we talked about before was the biggest shift that I think needs to happen is going from being a services org to a strategic org, right? So instead of just helping people get customers for all of the things that they're doing, you start creating your own strategic programs. And so, again, it comes down to kind of the company and where you are and what the goals are as soon as you step into the role. But I can share with you a couple examples of my past in terms of, what I started. And whenever I step in, people always want, okay, what's the 30, 60, 90? What are you going to do? And I kind of turn it around. I'm like, well, what's the situation here? Because we have customer marketing has like all these tools in their toolbox. We have all these types of programs we can launch. And really it's like, which ones come first? And I do believe there are a couple of things that you should do first to set yourself up for success in the future. So one of those is you should set sort of an advocacy brand and tone for your program, because everything you do after, you're going to want to attach that brand to. So at Box, in my experience, we called, our advocates the Box Stars. At Outreach, they were the heroes. And at Coupa, they're the spend setters. And so once people start hearing those words, then they include it in their own words, and they're like, oh, I want a customer to be a spend setter, and so that helps you just across the board, because then there's like this brand and personality that people want their customers to be a part of. So definitely start by developing that, and it's really fun, and people will love it when you do. So it's kind of like a win-win-win. I think the second one is a little more less creative, but definitely important, which is setting up some sort of reference tracking system. A lot of us, we all know in our heads, like a lot of us start off with kind of a Google spreadsheet, and just like within a month, you're like, I don't know, all these customers have done everything. I don't, it's really hard to keep track of. And so just having some sort of centralized technology that can help you track the activities is gonna just help you, because you can't even scale. Like, you can't do a big program to get more customers if you don't know how to track them, right? It's like, it would be utter chaos. So those are kind of like two things that I think are extremely important to do in the beginning. But if you want those big wins, you're going to have to start launching some strategic programs. And so I'm happy to talk about some of those that I did, but I'd love to hear kind of what everyone else has to say too.
Yeah, quickly, I'll just say, Charlotte, to your point and what you said earlier, kind of measuring those intangibles that aren't necessarily a deal size or win in revenue, but more, we're promoting our customer stories really well. And just another point, I'd say you're kind of like the gatekeeper of your customers as well. I think it's also important to set boundaries with your organization to not always go back to the same watering hole or same customer to tell that story, because you don't want to atrophy your client in terms of them speaking at the same event or same ask. And it's also really important to align on who's, making the client ask and who owns that relationship, because I think even internally, you might get tired of hearing from the same partner or client for a certain topic. So I think that goes back to our earlier point with, aligning incentives across the organization to feed, additional customer success stories or references, so that you're not hearing from the same person. So I just wanted to reiterate that and kind of also emphasize the point that, you can be protective over the same customers that you're promoting.
I think that's so important.
Oh, yeah.
Go ahead.
I just gave you the claps, because that's something that I really believe for customer marketers. Like, there are children in a way. It's like, you say no even to the CEO if we use the customer too much. Like, sorry, but fire me. But my job is to protect them. So I'm all about that, Matt.
Yeah, I think on the sort of the flip side too, so we don't feel like we're using the same customer over and over, it's like helping internally people understand who could be a reference. And going back to that menu, like, it's great for customers to see these are your options to participate, but I also feel like it's equally as important for your internal stakeholders, and educating your customer success managers or even your account managers that, every customer reference doesn't have to be a case study. So a customer who's maybe not in a place to do a case study could participate on a webinar or could speak at a conference, and just helping those internal people understand the different options, I think, broadens your pool too.
These are all great points. Reference burnout is real, right? Going back to Matt, that's a great point. I mean, you got to put kind of bumpers on your program, and, there's some tools out there that are purpose built for that sort of thing. So, and then the other thing, Charlotte, you brought up is, and I think Matt, you might have mentioned this, is kind of being the gatekeeper. You might have support reaching out to a customer, you might have customer success reaching out, you might have me reaching out, and before you know it, you've got 7 or 5 different disparate messages going into the same customer. And I mean, I can attest that when I get 5 emails in the same day from the same company, I go, wait a minute, you guys need to come up with a communication strategy here, because I'm getting asked or, pinged from a lot of different folks. So So yeah, so, maybe call it the gatekeeper, maybe call it the, communications guru, I don't know what, but, having somebody who's at least thinking about how often we're reaching out to a customer, and, making sure that we give them enough time between asks so that they don't feel like they work for us. I know my customers, they're busy doing their own job, right? They're heads down focused, and they want to be successful in their role. And if they're constantly taking time out of their day, to help me out, then I'm not helping them, right? So, all right, fantastic. Well, I think we covered a lot of really good ground on that one. Let's see. So, okay, let's talk about tools and kind of processes and procedures and workflows and that sort of thing. Why don't we start off, because I think, with customer marketing, customer advocacy, there's kind of a personality type. There's kind of some characteristics and some traits that one should probably possess if they're going to be really successful in all the things we've been talking about recruiting and building those relationships and kind of, building that trust and all that sort of thing. So, I don't know that anybody signed up for this question, but, what are some of the things that you are looking for? Maybe if you were going to be hiring for, somebody to fill in the customer marketing role, what are some of the personality traits that you should be looking for?
I'm going to chime in here just because I think for me, I'm proof that a career in customer marketing can come from literally anywhere. I came from musical theater and acting, and then went into the customer success world, and then into the customer and product marketing. And I think that, there's a lot of different character traits that I'm sure everybody will touch on, but I think having that kind of empathy and ability to kind of step into the mind of somebody else is so helpful in, really internalizing personas and knowing how to speak to your customers and knowing how to develop those relationships. It's been extremely helpful for me to have those skills in my back pocket. And so, I think those are a few really, really important ones to have, especially empathy, being able to, get on a customer's level and understand where they're coming from, and so that they do feel like you are their advocate. So yeah, it's been very interesting, but I honestly think customer marketer can come from almost anywhere.
Great. Yeah, Lauren, that's a really great point. Empathy, understanding, being able to put yourself in the shoes of the folks that you're working with. I've had an opportunity to get really close with some customers, and they've shared some really personal things that are going on in their lives. So, that takes a lot of time to kind of build that relationship. And you have to be willing to kind of be vulnerable and open up and be, share things about yourself too, right? I mean, the way I like to think about this is I'm not trying to have a vendor-customer relationship. I'm trying to build kind of a friendship. You know what I mean? Something that's a little bit more human than just, you're a customer of the company I work for. Like, that's not very exciting. That's not fun. So if you can break down some of those layers between, the software or whatever the technology or the product that you represent, and you can kind of present a human element, bring some humanity into it, right? So that's really important. How about tools? Are there some things that we use that sort of help with our day-to-day job or help us be successful? I know, Charlotte, you talked about, Google Sheets and having some way to kind of track your efforts and the things that you're working on with your customers. Any other tools, any other technology out there that we want to talk about?
I'm happy to touch on a couple. I think one is going back to an earlier question around the types of programs you start. So when I first started at Outreach, my CEO said, hey, we have raving fans. All we need to do is engage with them. And so I took that as a online community, because you can really scale. And I know, Andrew, you definitely have done this a lot, and all of you are nodding your heads. And so, like I said, it comes into like what's needed at the moment. And so with the online community, I used a tool called Influitive, which was a very, very, very useful tool to engage with people at scale. And so I personally really like the tool. But what's interesting is that it's not always a perfect fit every time, wherever you are in the company. It very much depends on the persona that you're dealing with, kind of like the quote unquote level or title that you're dealing with. So and also the resources on the inside, I think it's very important that you at least have someone who can dedicate most of their time to moderating and making sure that they're really engaged. So there's a lot of caveats, but when used correctly, I found Influitive to be an extremely useful mechanism just to engage with people at scale in a fun way. So that's one.
Yeah, I want to echo that. I've used Influitive now at 2 companies. And you're right. If it's the right fit, it can really, really propel your program, really help you take it to the next level, help you build that brand you were talking about, Charlotte, help you, engage with your customers and have them, activate and acts of advocacy like you talked about, Matt. Kind of the sky's the limit for that tool too. It's almost like whatever you can dream, you can do, so I'm a big fan of Influitive. There's a few others, right? The online review sites, obviously I kind of touched on, and, that's a great place to kind of get a pulse of your customers' experience and maybe identify folks that you want to bring into your program. It's also another place to kind of source content from, right? Without actually having to go out and interview the customer. They're writing these things online, and all you got to do is kind of pull it together and make some ebooks or leverage those quotes in a creative way. In terms of interviewing, all of us interview, I don't know how many customers every quarter, right? Well, it used to be that I would like record with my phone and then I'd frantically try to transcribe after the call, and that's not a good use of my time. So I record all the calls, and I use a service called rev.com to do the transcriptions for me. And then the nice thing about that is that I can build out this library of interviews that I can tap into. And to your point, Charlotte, around building out that customer advocacy lifecycle story, if we interview a customer 6 months post go live, and then 12 months post go live, and then 18 months post go live, the story's going to change, right? Their experience using your technology or the company that you work for it's going to change over time. And so those have been a couple of really cool, easy, fun ways for me to kind of keep my program running on all cylinders. Anybody else have any tools they want to mention, do a quick plug for?
We are actually in the process of launching a Salesforce user community. And so we right now use it for support tickets, for our knowledge management hub. And so the community is sort of that next step. And we're sort of hoping it becomes the one-stop shop for our customers to access sort of all of the things they need from us, but also can become a place where customers get to interact with each other, where we'll have, our product team in there, our support team closely monitoring all of that. We also use it sort of on the back end to track all of our interactions with customers. So every email we send goes into Salesforce on their contact record. Any email that's coming from their customer success manager or, notes from meetings that they've had, the same with their account manager. So it becomes sort of the central place for us to also see all of those things that are happening with a customer we're working with.
I have another sneaky one. I have a sneaky tool. So coming from a company like Outreach, it's a sales engagement tool. So it's like automating communications. And these days, a lot of companies are starting to have this tool. And typically it's used for like an SDR, ADR function, like a pre-sales. But you can actually use it in customer marketing. So back to that point earlier about how do we scale getting advocates, you could create a sequence or a cadence so that you can actually reach out to these new customers at a specific time with, the ask to join your program. So you can do that at scale. So that's one kind of sneaky thing that we've done before, which is really useful.
I love that idea, Charlotte. And we did a whole rollout and training of Outreach. Unfortunately, they ran out of licenses, so I wasn't able to get one. I know it would have really automated a lot of my outreach, literally, and communications. So maybe someday I'll be fortunate enough to get a license for Outreach.
Yeah. And sorry, I have one other thing too, which actually has really helped me in my career as a customer marketer that I also try and support my teams with, which is using budget to hire consultants, right? So it's all about scaling yourself again. And so, and a lot of, there's, especially these days, there's so many amazing customer marketing consultants out there. So if you can hire them to help you run a program, you can kind of oversee it, but they can do the groundwork for you so that you can continue to move quickly and start new programs quickly. So that's, you know, and it's also easier to get budget for that instead of headcount sometimes. So I don't know, I think that's like a career hack that I've been able to do for myself somehow. And so I think it's been really, really useful. So I highly encourage people to think about that. What programs are you about to launch that you could just bring in a consultant for who can help you get it off the ground? And then it helps you move faster. It helps you have like a scalable program, especially if it's your first time creating these types of programs. Like say it's an awards program or a customer advisory board or even your advocacy program. Like there's plenty of really great consultants out there who can help with that. So I think that's just another great tip to elevate the career.
Yeah, no doubt about it. I've got a writer who I've been working with for 12 years now. I brought him with me to maybe 3 different companies. I've actually got 2 writers on my staff right now. There's no way that I would be able to create, you know, the 15 customer stories plus blog posts, plus blog posts, plus press releases, plus, you know, all the things, right? Unless I had not a bench, but a few folks that have sort of brought with me along my career, you know, and I have them to thank for a lot of the success that I've had. So definitely tools, people, you know, working with folks across your company, right? Tapping into the relationships that your product marketers or your customer success folks have built. These are all really good ideas and great suggestions. So, you know, as we kind of think about wrapping up the session, you know, this has been a tough year, a challenging year for all of us, right? You know, we used to go to conferences and we used to meet people face to face, and now everything's kind of virtual and, you know, done through email and over the phone. And boy, Zoom fatigue is real. So, you know, if you think back on this last 12 or 13 months, you know, what are some of the challenges that you encountered, and maybe what are some of the creative ways that you overcame some of those challenges? And just real quick, so for me, you know, we used to go to our conference and we'd film our customers. This year, what we did was we put together these camera kits. And so the camera kit has a 4K camera. It's got a light and a microphone, and we send them to customers and they film themselves. They get to keep the camera kit. They send us back the SD, the data card, and then we go off and create a customer video out of that. Any other interesting ways that you've kind of overcome some of the challenges that you faced over the last year?
Yeah, so I think we'll hear, you know, a couple event examples, but when COVID hit back in March of 2020, this was like days before a big in-person event that we were having in New York City. And I think being able to pivot and develop what a really quality virtual experience, whether that be an event or a webinar or just a meetup, what that looks like, I think is really key. And I think the ability to understand as we all feel the Zoom fatigue, when and where do we want to develop a new experience, and how do we learn from each one? So are we developing webinars just for the sake of webinars, or is there something new and exciting going on? And then I think that experiential element of events is huge also. Depending on the company, there's always legal ramifications and red tape, but how do you send something of tangible value to your customers that they can experience as well? So we've had the ability to do some wine tastings and some really nice, you know, community gatherings where we can tie in some of the technical elements of products we're trying to push out the door, but how do we come together as a community and build more of that virtually, I think has been a great learning for 2020 into 2021 as well.
I think the other thing too, kind of around the virtual events thing, is especially as the pandemic first hit, a lot of our customers were asking like, well, what are other companies doing? And so we've been working really hard to sort of create those spaces where we're the facilitators, but they're the main show in terms of the conversation. And so we'll typically host, we have sort of 2 flavors of this. One is a executive roundtable, where it really is just a conversation. And then the other is, we call them virtual power lunches. And so they're at lunch, we share sort of, here are some of the findings that we've seen around a specific topic. And then we always save the last 15 minutes for conversation. But it's, I think, sort of we are the connectors. And so it's how do you create that space for other people to talk to each other, especially when there's so much uncertainty, and really adding that as a value add of being a customer of ours that doesn't necessarily benefit us. It's more about them.
Fantastic. And Matt, if there's any leftover wine bottles, I'll send you my address, and
yeah,
we can do our own.
I'm asking for myself too.
Sounds good. All right. Well, listen, we covered a lot of ground. I think there's a lot to know, and there's a lot to kind of get comfortable with and understand if somebody's considering making a move into the customer marketing space, or for companies that are considering adding this to their marketing organization. Any final thoughts or things you want to share, things we didn't cover, last minute things you want to discuss?
I think we talked a little about, from a organizational standpoint of what we want to accomplish with customer marketing. But I think if your company is starting to invest in customer marketing, really be core to what you're trying to achieve, whether that be get more voices out from a customer perspective, or develop more client references. And I think from an individual standpoint, I think another key skill is, use case identification and how that works cross-functionally. So if you're hearing from a customer and how they applied a product to a business problem at their organization, how do you take that and scale it, as Charlotte mentioned a bunch, to sales, to engineering, to product. So I think that's another great skill to have, is how you translate that, but know the many different players that are within your organization that would benefit from hearing that use case, or hearing and expanding upon that use case as you tap into other industries as well. And I think as you're looking from the industry perspective, hearing from a customer from a highly regulated industry like a public sector, financial services, is also huge in terms of aligning incentives for your sales team of, showcasing this story is going to help you win more business in those specific sectors. So I think from an organizational standpoint, from an individual standpoint, just aligning goals and that use case identification skill is huge.
I love that.
Yeah, that's great. Anything you want to add to that, Charlotte?
Changing gears a little bit, but similar in terms of cross-functional alignment, and going back to a discussion we had about getting more advocates in your program, is if you've heard me speak before, I've mentioned this before because it's one of my favorite programs, but I call it the Storytime Happy Hour program. So especially for groups in your organization who are close to the customer. So we have a couple of those at Coupa. One is sort of like a sales engineering organization, and then there's of course customer success. And so usually you realize like they hold all this customer information in their heads, and so how do you get it out of there without meeting with every single person for an hour talking about their customers? And so what we've done before in the past is develop a Google spreadsheet that's basically a case study template, and we have each person fill out one or two. And what I've done when we're in person is say, okay, I'm going to book 2 hours on your calendar. We're all going to get in a room. I'll bring in some beer and some cold hard cash. So for every story you write, you literally get $50. And of course there's different ways to do this, but man, you get so many stories. And it's great because then it's like, boom, all of a sudden. So whether you're needing to recruit like specific stories that are priority areas for you, or you just need to fill up your bank, that's great. And then of course you need to put it in a centralized place so that you can search easily and then find, exactly what you're looking for. But it's a great way to get new customer stories and like kind of nominations for advocates as well.
Love it. Love it. Love it. Kind of final thoughts from me is, and Charlotte, I think you probably can recognize this as well, but, back in 2006, 7, 8, this role didn't even exist, right? It was just called references way back when. And you had two customers. They were sales and marketing. Those were your internal customers. So it's been amazing to watch this role evolve and develop. And, way back in 08, 07, there was a couple of dozen people that were really focused on this thing. And now, when I look at LinkedIn and I see how many people are, in the customer marketing world, customer advocacy world, the momentum is building, and it's not a nice to have anymore. This is really a must have for any business that wants to harness, to leverage, to include the voice of the customer. So I'm excited for the future. I can't wait to see what are some of the innovative approaches that new folks into this role are going to bring, new life that they're going to breathe into some of the old ways that we've been doing things over and over again. So I think the future is really bright for customer marketing, and I think there's a lot of goodness to come. So and with that, I think we've filled our time slots. So thank you so much, everyone, for participating in today's panel. Really exciting stuff. Thank you so much. You're so everybody brought a really interesting, unique perspective, and I think we all shared some really good knowledge. So thank you all so much.
Thanks
Thank
all.
you.
Thanks.
Thank you.
And if anyone wants to reach out, I'm sure we all feel the same way, but feel free to reach out. Love, to your point, Andrew, love talking about customer marketing. I cannot wait to learn from people who are just starting and who are going, why were you doing it that way for so long? And teach me something that I don't know. So would love to connect with everyone.
Yeah, I think we're all on LinkedIn, right? People can track us down and get a hold of us and pick our brains a little more if they want to.
Whether you're joining a Product Marketing Alliance event for the first time, or if you're a seasoned regular, welcome to the first ever Customer Marketing Summit. Before we set the ball rolling on the next session, we just want to say a huge thank you to our sponsors, partners, speakers, and you, our lovely audience. From wherever in the world you are watching, we're sure you'll enjoy the sessions from our incredible lineup. With expert presentations, specialist talks, and deep dive panel sessions on the agenda, you are in for a real treat today. To get the most out of these sessions, please ensure you are sharing your feedback and asking all your questions in the comments section, and our speakers will be answering them throughout. After the event, a great place to continue the conversation is in the customer marketing channel in the PMA Slack community. If you aren't already a member, hop on over. In addition to the jam-packed lineup, we were delighted to announce the winner of the Customer Marketing Excellence Award a little earlier today. Missed it? Well, don't worry, because we have given the winner and the runners-up a shout-out in the Customer Marketing channel on Slack. Be sure to head on over and share your congratulations. We had a great time reviewing all your fantastic nominations. Thanks for taking the time to share them with us. But now, it's time for the next talk.
Customer Marketing Summit attendees. I'm Margot Leong, and I am the host of Beating the Drum, which is a podcast about the art and science of customer advocacy. I am so thrilled to be able to interview my good friend, Lindsay Molina, for this Fireside Chat. She is an absolutely breathtaking, incredible customer marketer, but I'm going to let her actually introduce herself for this.
Thanks, Margot, and hello, everyone. Thanks for tuning in. I don't really know what to say after that really nice intro, Margot, but I'm Lindsay Molina. I currently lead customer marketing at Slack. I've been there for a little over 2.5 years, and prior to that, led customer marketing teams at MuleSoft And then also was in customer marketing at Poly, previously Polycom. So been in the customer marketing biz for about 8 years now. And yeah, I just love learning from and networking with other customer marketers in the biz. So we're just really excited to have this conference. And thank you to Rose and everyone at PMA for giving us a spot to do this.
Yes, absolutely. And so, for this conversation, Lindsay and I, we were thinking about what would be the best topic to really focus on amidst all of these other amazing topics. And what we landed on was really about the future of work and, how engagement has changed when it comes to, how we're all interacting remotely going forward. As we all know, this has been an absolutely insane year with COVID. It has changed everything. But when it comes to customer marketing specifically, that means it's really changed not only the way that we tell our customer stories, but also the ways that we engage with them in the first place. And that's really where I would love to kick off the conversation. So Lindsay, I would love for you to take us back to about a year ago, maybe a little bit earlier than that. But when this was all happening, how were you and the team feeling? And give us a sense of place in terms of how you guys were thinking things might even change.
Yeah, it's crazy that it's been a whole year, but in other ways it feels like longer, I'm sure, for everyone. I think if I transport myself back, actually right before lockdown happened for us in the US and in San Francisco specifically, we were about to do our big global sales kickoff. And so that kind of pivoted to a virtual conference, which was kind of a taste of what was to come for the rest of the year with everything we did. But I think the biggest shift for us, or what we kind of had to realize overnight, was it was really less about the stories we wanted to tell and what we thought we were going to do that year, and more about how do we rally around our customers during this extremely difficult time. There was no playbook for how do you operate your businesses in a pandemic. So I think first thought was, how do we support our customers? What do they need from us right now? And how do we focus on that as priority number one, and kind of table some of the other stuff, which as an organization, Slack did a really great job of that. So it was really reassuring to be part of that culture anyways. So we actually kind of just use it as a time to reach out to a lot of our champions that we'd worked with, hey, how are you guys doing? What do you need? Can we give you guys some tips? Because no one had done the full remote in a pandemic situation before, but I think at Slack, we had done a little bit of the hybrid remote, certain employees were remote and that flexible thing. So talking to them about that and then helping set them up for success. And then through that process too, I think we found some hero triumph stories of some of our customers who really were, after, a couple weeks in, we're hey, we got this, we can work remotely. We have what we need to make our employees successful, feel connected, and be productive. There were actually some interesting stories around the shift to remote work and sort of how these businesses rose to the occasion. And so then it kind of, after the a little bit of trough of despair, oh my gosh, then we kind of came out of it and was wait, there's some really great stuff. Our customers are kicking butt. What can we do to actually tell those stories now through this new lens? And I think we actually, in some cases, we saw certain customers were responding to us quickly to do these things. I think because they knew this was a unique opportunity and a time to get their brand story out there. So yeah, it was a little terrifying at first, I'm sure, for everyone. And then we kind of found a way to pivot.
I think what was really interesting about what you said there was, it happened in a very organic and natural way. And of course, with Slack, right, you're well positioned to be able to provide some thoughts, right, in terms of how you can help guide some of your customers. But I think this is a really good lesson just in general, is that stories can be surfaced in so many different ways. And a lot of that just comes from, connecting genuinely to your customers, right? And reaching out just to be hey, how are you doing? I think what's interesting too about the pandemic is that, and especially this is something that I've heard from people that have also come on the podcast, is that it it brought you into people's lives in this really interesting and intimate way. Like I can see your background, right? Like you can see like, well, my manufactured background, but
looks great.
Thank you. But you developed a sense of intimacy with your customers in this really interesting way, which almost lets people bring down their barriers a bit more. Like everybody's acknowledging that they're all going through something crazy right now. And it almost sets everybody on a more sort of equal path, on a more equal playing field. And so, I love that you talked about really reaching out first as humans, which sounds very corny, but I think that it's super important to do so. And then, then realizing, okay, like there's some amazing stories that are coming out of this process. But first it's connecting with them just to understand how they're doing. And then understanding, okay, as you said, how do we support them during this time?
I think it's like twofold. So you mentioned the like connecting with customers as humans first. Like this was definitely like on the positive side, a good reminder of that. And like all of us work for probably mostly tech companies trying to get customers to talk about the product. But at the end of the day, there is like a human at the end who is using the software and who has their own personal experiences that are affected in all different ways. And so how we engaged with them was really important. But then on the flip side, another thing we started to think about, and as we realized this was not like a 1 month thing, it was going to be a multi-month, year, whatever it was, people didn't want to consume stories in the way they were before anyways. Like we needed to dig more into that like heartfelt human angle and celebrate those wins in a different way that like we probably should have been doing before, to be honest, but we just like we weren't like forced to. And that's something that I'm sure we'll dig into later. But as we think about like, it was a good way to look back on like, what are the types of ways that we do capture stories, and are we actually reaching audiences in the way that they want to be reached? Because I think we had to rethink our strategy there too.
Did you find, I'm curious, I definitely want to get into the piece around thinking about how your audience wants to consume stories. But before that, I wanted to talk a little bit about, there's a piece of, okay, typically when we reach out to customers, a lot of times, of course, we're helping them out from a thought leadership standpoint, right? We want to make it a win-win, but sometimes it can also be like, the customers are, in many ways, right, going above and beyond for us, kind of doing us a favor by, taking the time to provide us with their stories. But I'm curious with COVID, if you found that companies were actually more receptive to doing the stories, just because this would give them more exposure, right? It was a tough time for everybody. And also like for you guys to be able to sort of weave in stories that were a little bit different and really like painted them in a very interesting light around adaptation and change and all of that.
Yeah, I do. I think I can give a couple examples because they're on our website now, so they're public. So I hope that's not an issue. One of them that was actually really interesting, and Emma Telfer, who's on my team, led this with the customer, and it was like the response was, it happened so fast. So it was, I think it maybe even started on Twitter, but customers were talking about like what they were doing and how they were pivoting. And one of these was the transport agency in New York that runs the subway. And so as you can imagine, with the pandemic and all of the uncertainty there, like everything they did shifted. They had to bring all their employees remote, but then they also had to figure out like, how do we safely operate the subway? Like, what are the guidelines there? And, things were changing day to day. And so that was like a hero story for them on how they were able to adapt and do that and still work with their service teams to get the latest information out there who were like running the subway. And that was like a hero story for them. And it was like, obviously for a lot of customers too, they're always doing great stuff every day, but customers don't want to publicize the good work they do, right? Like they don't want to like brag about themselves. So I think that's also another lesson to remember is like, we as customer marketers are this like third party that can come to the customer and be like, no, this is really exceptional. This is something we should be celebrating. And you give the customer the opportunity to do that and celebrate that win. So that was one that was really cool. I think another one
also that kind of came out recently, but is still super relevant, is with, and another one that Emma got to work on, was Shipped, and sort of how they were able to do like grocery delivery and sort of like same day delivery and all of their operations, again, sort of on like the service side, and how they were triaging all that with Slack. And that was like a great story because it was how they were servicing their customers when people weren't, able to go into stores and do like sort of their normal shopping routine. And so I think those are a couple cool examples where finding those angles for customers and just being very in tune with like, what's their mission, what are they trying to achieve, and sort of anchoring the story in that value is really important to the customer, and like for the individuals, but also for the brand too.
Yeah, I think, you bring a really good point around showcasing, like we there's a lot of like talk around, okay, like our customers are our heroes, blah, blah, blah. But in a lot of ways, I think that people don't realize, as you said, the good work that they're doing until you have kind of a third party point that out to them. And I think with everything with COVID, like that is a perfect example of just all the things that happen when people spring into action because they have to respond to something. And so for us to come in and be able to showcase that and spotlight that, as you said, like people are so amazed and excited to be able to share that because it's something that is truly meaningful to them, especially again during these kind of crazy times.
Yeah, for sure.
And so something that I wanted to also talk about, right, is understanding when we actually think about the engagement piece itself. So how do we, in this new time, right, be able to engage when we think about like tactics, engage with customers in a different way, right? So you mentioned at the beginning, this is a great sort of transition was the digital conference, the virtual piece. And so how did you find that over the course of the past year, you and your team were engaging with your customers differently, if at all?
Yeah, I think, well, there's like sort of like the bread and butter of customer marketing that most people just assume that you always do. There's different channels or formats to tell a story, like case study on the website, customer comes to speak at an event and you record that, and there's ways to repurpose it, webinars, videos. I know video content is a huge focus for most customer marketing programs. And like the traditional way, if you think about that, it was like you'd go to the customer's office, you would film some interviews, you'd get some beautiful B-roll. It's like a 2 to 3 day thing. And I mean, truthfully, that's like one of my favorite parts of my job. Like I love being on site with customers and like being in their office and the energy, but obviously that was off the table. And even as we started to find creative ways to film customers with like drop kits, and there's some like really cool companies out there that support all that, we had to think about like, is this the way people want to even consume content? I mean, everyone's watching us on recording from right now, like Zoom, but so, Zoom fatigue or that sort of burnout. So thinking of like, are there other formats and ways we can get the voice of the customer out there that maybe aren't what we've done traditionally? And so we have tried to experiment with different things on social, and there's some cool new formats I think that you'll hopefully see coming out of Slack soon. But just even thinking about ways to do like animated stories, like shorter videos where you can either have narration of the customer and them telling their story, or you can do things with like captions and just like graphic animations of the product. And the other thing too, which is great about it, is there's already so much going on. Like our customers are already so busy. And when you lose that in person showing up at the office and getting to do those things, we just try to think about what are ways we can get them to tell their story that's a lighter lift. And some of this type of work we found to be successful, and it has a little bit more of like a creative spin to it.
Yeah, I think something interesting that I've heard too, I recently interviewed Sam Shepler, who's the CEO of Testimonial Hero, and he was talking about how, previously, right, you would bring a film crew on site and then you would film. And to be honest, like I love going there. I love that opportunity to go fly somewhere. Like it's very cool. Plus I get to eat room service, which is like the best perk for me personally. But basically, like, what he was saying too is that, instead of like a trick that he's seeing, right, is that instead of filming through your webcam even, right, is that your video quality is so much better if you do it over the phone. And so you can even set it up so that you've got, sort of the phone pointing at the customer, and then you can ask them questions, right, get things going in that way so that it's the quality still feels very like basically very high quality and also authentic, but then not also kind of have that sort of grainy, rough feel that you can have from webcam filming. So that's also kind of another interesting way that people can capture video with their customers. But, I think, as you said, right, this also required a shift, not only in terms of how we connect with customers to capture the stories themselves, but whether or not customers would be receptive, in the first place to this type of content. And something I think that I particularly like when I talk to you is that you kind of do this cool thing where you talk about like opportunities in terms of sort of refreshing, right? I think that you talked about this with me on the podcast, where it was like the opportunity to refresh the way we think about case studies, right? And is this aligned fully with the product messaging, right? Making sure that we're not just sort of following in the same rhythm that we have for years and years and years, because it's really easy to do that. But I think it's the same thing with how you think about just generally, does this content still resonate with customers in 2020 and 2021? So I'd love to talk to you a little bit more about that, like some of those, options for, as you said, animated stories, right? Some of the cool things that you're thinking about there. Maybe there's a little preview.
Yeah, I think one of the things we're excited to do more is think about how we can partner with our customers and have more of like a brand mapping and sort of like the vision there. And I think obviously this year and like looking forward in a post-pandemic world, like there's always going to be some element of like flexible work and like how we support employees. And so for Slack in particular, we're thinking about sort of like how do we carry that message through and what does that mean? And like you kind of had said or alluded to what we've talked about before is like, I think we fall into the habit of, as a customer marketer, it's like I produce videos or case studies, sales, the field needs slides and we're going to have a quote of a number of things we do and like that's it. But I think if you can pull yourself out of that a little bit and think about like what are the messages that we're trying to bring to the market, what's the audience, what do our current customers and also our prospects, like what are they looking for, and then think about the framework that way, and then you have a little bit more flexibility in terms of the types of ways you capture the stories, like I had mentioned. And so I think one area that's really cool, and we've actually got some pretty good feedback from some of our customers that we worked with last year. One of them was like a large financial institution, was that they found value in wanting to do certain activities with us because they felt like our brand vision kind of aligned with theirs. And so one of the things that they wanted to talk about was hiring great talent and top talent and how to keep employees happy and engaged during this like shift of 10,000 plus employees who all had to go remote. So for them, that was like what motivated them. And that was the story they were trying to tell. And so when we found ways to get that, and we like did some like pitching to the press and we used their story as an example, like that was sort of the angle that really made sense for them. And then I think the other thing to think about is once you know like what the narrative is or the story is, or you get alignment with the customer on that, there are a lot of lightweight ways to get the story and then package it up back for them for review. So I mentioned like these animated videos that we're like experimenting with, or even I guess they're not even really animations. It's kind of like just like on like stories, if you like think about like Instagram stories. So it's like a few different like still cuts of the customer story with like graphics. Those are things that we can reuse on the web. Those are things we reuse in slides. And it gives the field something that's a little like, I guess, fresher to share versus like just kind of like the standard like case study PDFs and things like that. And it's also really cool for the customer to share that. We found like on social, especially right now, is like where companies want to share stuff. Like customers probably not gonna like share the link to the case study.
Yes.
But
exactly.
if you have a really cool like animation or a GIF or even just like a beautiful like headshot with like a quote card that we post on LinkedIn, customers want to repost that, brands want to repost that. And so that's where we're also trying to like think about how do we create content that they want to share on their own channels and amplify. And that gives us way more reach than we're going to create formats that we want to put on our own properties and on our website. So that's, I think, something else that we're trying to get a little bit more creative with too.
Yeah, it's
I don't know if that was specific enough.
No, it's perfect.
Okay.
No, I think it's interesting because this, like something like this has basically forced everybody to become naturally just have to change in terms of how they've thought about the creation of this content. And everybody has to be a bit more nimble in terms of a refresh here. And so I love what you talked about with sort of the animated content or, you know, especially like designed for social. I think something that I'm hearing about too is when it comes to like, again, using animations, if you're not wanting to film the customer or don't have that ability, you could almost have the customer like sort of talk about it, talk about the story, almost like in a way that's a bit more sort of storytelling focused. So you're like, okay, this one thing happened to me, and you know, they become super animated. But then you actually animate someone else talking as them, or you animate like a whole sort of cartoon about it, so that it becomes this really interesting vignette. Of course, you have to hire an agency or get, you know, in-house designers, but I think it's a very salient point to what you said, is that I think the evolution with customer marketing, right, is not only that we are just content creators, that we just push things out rotely, if rotely is even a word, but in this rote manner for different teams to consume. But I think now customer marketing, right, we have a hand in terms of thinking about how best to create that content in a way that will really amplify the message, in a way that will really spread it, you know, to more prospects, to more customers. That's, I think, a really exciting frontier. And I think that's where we can get a lot more strategic as customer marketers, is to really like get excited about what we can do with these different mediums that we have access to.
Yeah, I do think it's like light at the end of the tunnel, because I do remember talking to other customer marketers at the beginning of the pandemic. And obviously I'm totally aware of the fact that working at a company like Slack that supports remote work, I mean, there are other companies out there that I'm sure, like when this happened, that it had much bigger impact too. So I am grateful for that, and I want to acknowledge that. But I do think from like stories we've heard, even of our own customers in industries like retail or transportation, like I mentioned, once they kind of came out of that, like they were also kind of reborn, and there was like some new stories there to tell. And I do think what's cool is it did sort of show the value of customer marketing. Like probably at the beginning of the year, everyone was like, shoot, like my whole plan is scrapped. I can't get videos. How am I supposed to go ask a customer to like share their success when like their business is struggling? But like, yes, but then once you kind of get past that, it was like, okay, well now we actually kind of get to reset, think about how do we want to approach our customers? What can we offer them that's valuable during this time? And then I think it's kind of like been a nice reminder that we, like you mentioned, we do bring a lot more value than just like sort of like cranking out content. And whenever you can position yourself and the story, like I keep saying, sorry if this is so repetitive, about making what's valuable for the customer and what their brand is trying to communicate to the market, you're just setting yourself up for more success. And so that's sort of where we've tried to focus. And sometimes that means some customers won't want to engage. Like it's still like a pipeline. You still have to like have targets. You work with different accounts. Some fall through, some move faster, some take like a year to get approved, but you like stick with it.
The struggle we all know.
Yeah. But Emma's probably like watching this right now being like, oh my gosh, because some of these customers during the pandemic, it did take a long time, but it finally came through. And those stories also last longer, right? Because it's not just like you're going after a customer for a, hey, we just launched this feature and we want to quote about this feature. And then 6 months later, the story's not as relevant. So I always just find when you anchor it into what was the customer's challenges, what were they trying to achieve, and like who is their customers or who is their audience is where you're going to find the most synergy.
And it feels good. Like it feels really good to be able to do that for a customer. And I think, you know, like I bang on about this all the time, right? But it's, you know, ultimately I think customer marketing, we get to be in this really I think especially now, this really advantageous place, right? Storytelling and success and marketing all sort of blended together, which is, everything for us is always sort of in service of the customer. And so we really get to utilize our existing company's resources to try and like bring them up as much as possible.
Yeah.
I love that, like, we can have that opportunity to continue to expand, think outside of the box for how we do that. And of course, customer or customers is one of the best ways to do that. So I know that we are edging on time here. So I think the last question before we wrap up is really a little bit more around, this topic of the future of work, right? And, I would say that we've all been in this state of working remotely for a long time. And it looks as though the future of work is going to be hybrid remote, where occasionally we'll come into the office maybe once, twice a week, but most of the time, right, people will be working remotely. And so, any sort of previews, any thoughts on how we can continue to, maintain this rapport with our customers and what all of that will look like, going forward?
Yeah, it's a great question. I think obviously I have a certain perspective as, coming from Slack and like Slack the product and also Slack the culture. But I do think there's some learnings there. And like what we've heard from our customers is they are embracing this new way of work. They understand that it is going to be some sort of hybrid of employees from home, employees in the office. And I think it's yet to be seen, but in the years to come, it'll be interesting to see how that changes or shapes like their business strategy and sort of like where they focus. And so I'm excited because I think in terms of like where there's opportunities to tell more stories, I sort of like that we're not going back to the old way of work where everyone's going to be in the office. And there's so much data out there that shows that people actually don't want that. And I think when people do want to be in person, they want it to be intentional and about like building relationships and having that connection, because now we all know we can do our work from wherever we are. It doesn't make sense to me to like, hey, yeah, I want to go in the office today to just like stare at my laptop all day. Like if I'm going to go in the office, I want to like be with like my colleagues. I want to spend time with them. Or if I'm going to go be with a customer, like I want to use that time on site really meaningfully. And like, what can we do on site that's like super valuable for them? And so we're just trying to like think of that. And then I think just finding ways to engage with customers that's like more relationship based. I think like, so obviously again, at Slack, we communicate with our customers in Slack. So we don't use email or anything like that, just because they're in the product and so are we. But actually, we could do a whole nother topic on this, but if you are using Slack or if your customers are, I think there's something to be said for communicating with them that way, because like you mentioned, you just kind of get to know people on a more personal level, whether it's like Zoom and their kids in the background, or just like being able to send them quick chats like, hey, how's it going? Oh, I saw you launch this thing, like congrats. Oh, so-and-so just got promoted, like, well done. And we're able to have that like always on kind of communication now with our customers in a friendly way. And it doesn't feel like, hey, I'm sending you a long formal email, would you mind being a reference? And so I'm excited for like a future where that is more of the norm.
Yeah, but I'm hearing about customers too, where you develop relationships via text, right? SMS, like Slack, different channels, Discord, right? Wherever your customers are, anything that you can do, right, to relax or to soften or to like totally dismantle this barrier between like, weirdly like vendor and, customer, and make it more friendly, right? That does so much to change that entire relationship and just make it like your friends who have nothing but, sort of good intentions and thoughts for each other. So anyway, I think this is a perfect place to wrap up. Lindsay, if people would love to connect with you, what's the best place to do that?
Yeah, you can find me on LinkedIn. I love connecting with other customer marketers, so don't be shy, shoot me a note. And then I'm also in the Product Marketing Alliance Slack workspace, which is actually probably the best way to reach me. And there's just a bunch of great folks in there already. So I would say if you're not there, you should definitely join, and would love to chat with anyone who wants to reach out.
Awesome. I'm in that Slack workspace as well. It is fantastic. And then, yeah, if you are interested in reaching out to me, I can be found on beatingthedrum.com. Thanks so much, everybody, for attending, and take care.
Thanks, everyone. Thanks, Margot.
Bye.
Hello, wherever you are joining us from today, we want to say a huge welcome to our global community. We hope you're enjoying the Customer Marketing Summit. I also want to send out an extra special thank you to all our sponsors, partners, speakers, and participants who together have made this event possible. Their sessions are bursting with insights to help you level up. But remember, the learning doesn't stop here. If you haven't already, you can upgrade your pass to include access to all today's sessions on demand. Or you can become a PMA member and benefit from unlimited access to exclusive templates, frameworks, and our entire library of talks from our live events. And remember, have your questions at the ready. Simply post your question in the comments section and get awesome advice from an expert in the field. What's not to love about that? So now, on to the next talk.
Hi, everyone. My name is Jeff Hardison, and I am head of product marketing for Katlin. Super excited to be here today. I'm going to be talking about why a customer reference program is today's most important B2B marketing initiative. I've built customer reference programs as well as participated in them, companies such as Amazon.com, HP, Envision, and Clearbit. And I'm a big believer in them and hope I can share my excitement with you. So, one of the things that's kind of driving, I think, the reemergence of customer reference programs is basically you've got two camps of marketing that's going on. You've got the folks who are trying to earn attention. They are maybe, doing influencer relations. They're rolling up their sleeves doing content marketing. They are doing events and so forth online, and they're trying to earn the attention and customers. And then you've got the second camp, which are trying to buy the attention of customers. They're doing performance marketing with ads. Maybe they're renting a list and helping send email cadences with SDRs and so forth. And one thing that's interesting to think about is that there's this huge group of marketers who've come up during various boom economies, such as the dot-com boom, the 90s, or the real estate boom, or whatever this is right now. I guess this is the social and SaaS boom. And they, have always been buying attention. They've gotten real comfortable buying attention, right? Instead of having to earn it. And one of the reasons is, and I came up during one of these boom economies, we had huge budgets, right? And so instead of necessarily rolling up your sleeves and doing all this hard content marketing work or hard influencer relations work that doesn't scale, you could be able to, just put out a lot of ads. I did a search on Google for, .com ads, and this is what I saw. And you can see, you can get pretty lazy with your ad buying and your ad creative during a boom economy. Now, what's interesting that happens is that in a down economy, or an uncertain one like we're dealing with now, many of us buying marketers, we start to face this scary reality, okay? And there comes this time, maybe it's not like today or next week, where bosses come to us, or maybe it's the C-level leadership, and they start examining all this buying that we're doing, all this buying of attention and customers, and they want to see the return on ad spend. They want to see the ROI. And so for the first time, there's this personal crisis for us, right? And we start to really worry. We're like, what am I going to do? This is what I do. I make ads. I buy ad space. I run these ads. I don't know how to roll up my sleeves and do content marketing or pitch some type of influencer online. And these bosses are going to ask, or they're already doing it, they're going to ask us to do more with less, right? And we start to really worry about this. So what ends up happening is that we as marketers doing these down economies or uncertain times, or just a culture of questioning, marketing spend, we have to pivot to doing more earning of that attention and leads. You'll start to notice these people who've doing lots of demand gen performance marketing. Next thing you know, they're starting to do like a little bit of content marketing, or they start to lobby certain departments to help with things that are more kind of earned attention related. And so I think part of the issue is figuring out how to do this earning of attention in a way that makes sense, right? That's going to be very powerful for anybody that's trying to do this. So what I want you to do is just, humor me for a second and close your eyes. And I want you to think about a couple consumer purchases you made in the last couple of years. And I'm going to open my eyes to kind of look around to see what they were for me. You might have to do the same. And think about those consumer purchases and how you heard about some of your favorite consumer purchases, okay? For me, there was this Bose speaker. Left to my own devices, I would have bought like a really bad Bluetooth speaker. I asked a friend, my friend Adam, an engineer, recommended the Bose speaker, love it. Was remodeling my kitchen, didn't know what to do, would have made horrible choices on my own. Asked my friend Kathy, also an engineer, and said, what do you recommend? Went over to House. I saw her beautiful backsplash, kind of stole the idea, maybe stole a couple other ideas while I was there, right? And I was happier with this because if I'm doing the purchasing a lot of times, I buy stuff that's not that great. Like this iron right here. This iron kind of sucks. I didn't find it from an Instagram ad, but I think I was at Macy's and saw it on an end cap as a promotion, bought it. Probably should have asked friends, what kind of iron do you recommend? Now, I was wondering, and so I did a little Google search and I said, do B2B buyers do something similar? Do they ask their friends and trust peers and so forth and people they respect? And if you Google just, buying trends from B2B buyers, you will find in the top of, trends, you'll notice that it's listening to peers, listening to colleagues, listening to people they trust over and over and over again. Yet as marketers, a lot of times we don't devote a lot of time and resources to garnering this third-party validation from customers and people that are trusted. That's unfortunate because the best marketing, in my opinion, and I think a lot of us, if we really look into our hearts and think about our buying decisions, is infused with the voice of the customer. Some of the best blog posts, some of the best web copy, the best ads, you name it. For example, some companies that I've been involved in and how they've done it, when I was at Meridian, a small startup that was acquired later by HP, we didn't have big marketing budget. We only had like $1 million in funding. And so what we did was we literally made customers happy, flew to their locations, helped them build their mobile app. And then we said, hey, in return for this work, do you mind if we, pitch this to the Wall Street Journal, New York Times, and so forth? And that's how we got a lot of our marketing, right? Later, when acquired by HP, Meg Whitman, amazing leader, got on stage. What did she do? She showed a customer on stage with her from Home Depot where they talked about how they use HP's services, okay? Clearbit does an amazing job of creating beautiful case studies with their customers. They also use a lot of these testimonials within Facebook ads. I think some of those Facebook ads are more attractive than ones without. A lot of times what I like to do is go on Twitter and see which customers are talking. I went and looked at, for example, Envision when I was working there and noticed Atlassian was talking. What I do? Reached out to Atlassian, interviewed them for a case study. Calendly does a great job of getting customers to talk. So part of doing this kind of customer marketing work isn't just kind of imagining what you could do with it, but you got to build a case with leadership. So for example, one of the things that we recommend doing is showing some type of stats, such as I showed earlier about buying behaviors to help build a case for customer marketing. Two, if you can show some kind of like research, for example, Google, 10 trends in kind of pandemic era marketing, customer marketing comes up, right? You can see this right here in Harvard Business Review. And it's not just customer marketing for customer references, but having the customer marketer be at the heart of all kinds of customer interactions for product and sales and other groups, which I'll talk about a little bit later. Second, what this allows you to do is you're not just engaging the customer for say a case study or for your website and so forth. You're doing this to also study the user. these case studies aren't just good for closing deals and attracting prospects, they also help inform product development. For example, if you go onto YouTube, you'll find a number of different, interviews with customers for Calendly that also serve as great testimonials. There's great product feedback here, and there's also great testimonial work. Third, helping you build case for customer marketing, it helps the sales team. Every CEO knows that if you have a sales team, they're coming to you asking for more and more customer references to help close deals. Customer marketing, of course, does a great job with equipping sales with that. And really, sales is happy a lot of times to get anything they can, okay? My colleague here, Derek Kim Calendly, he did a wonderful job of taking existing case studies and repackaging them into a slide format for sales, and sales loved it. This is a pinned Slack message from him for the sales channel. Later, somebody from CS reached out to him and says, how can I get my hands on these case studies? They already existed. He just did some little bit of work and repackaged them via slide format, and they loved it. All right, so now that I've kind of built a case, I hope, for you, on why you should do customer reference programs, or maybe if you're a pro at it, helped you have some more slides that you can use to build a further case, to get more resources and so forth. I'm going to give you 5 easy tips that I love to recommend so that this doesn't have to be this big deal, but you can be able to implement pretty quickly. Okay, number 1, formally present the customer reference program, just like I did with you, right? Use some of these stats, try to build a case, show some research, show other examples of other companies do it. So there's a little bit of that fear of missing out there, and give it a name, right? If this is just something that you do on top of your product marketing job and it hasn't been formalized as a program, you're probably not going to get many resources or people behind it. So for example, call it a customer advisory board, call it a customer reference program, call it Customers for Us, anything. Just really give it a name and formalize it with the company. Second, if you just kind of reach out to CS and say, hey, do you all have any customers that can be able to service references? That's going to take a long time. And, they might be a little bit protective of their customers. See if you instead can get approval to run kind of a voice of the customer survey, where you maybe tap in to NPS scores, as well as ask, if they're happy, whether they would be a reference. And super secret tip, this is one of my favorite things I've implemented through the years: give the customer options. Don't just say, will you be a customer reference, but lay out different options to be a customer reference. For example, let's say you have this email go out and say like, hey, we'd love to really promote you. You're one of our favorite customers. Want to kind of check in on how happy you are. If they're 8, 9s, and 10s on the NPS score, it's probably going to be a good customer reference. If they're not, maybe you should talk to CS. And then, help out your other teams in this email, because we don't want to send lots of emails and bother people. That's what gets these kind of programs shut down. Ask, hey, would you like to talk to product about new initiatives? 2, would you like to beta test new products for product? Help out your product team. Then help out yourself. Have us promote you, video case study, written case study, public speaking opportunity, talk to the press. When you give options, a lot of times you'll notice that they won't say no right away, because if you just give one option, they think of the worst type of customer reference activity sometimes. And so give them options so they can opt into multiple things or opt out of stuff. Then ask if they want to be a sales reference. Another tip, ask if they want to be a VC reference, if it's appropriate. What we'll notice a lot of times, and particularly smaller startups, we'll use a customer too much for VC references, and then we'll try to use them for sales references. And then when we go to them for a case study, they're already tired, right? And so you want to really make sure you're getting them to opt into all these different options. Number 3, make sure you keep track of your customers' participation and reward them. Okay, there's a lot of different systems out there you can use, like Reference Edge. Once you get a little more sophisticated, you want to keep track of customers' participation in Salesforce. But you can just start with a simple Google Sheet where you keep track of the customer, what they're willing to do. Is it video? Is it case study? What they've done for you? Who the owner is, and so forth. It doesn't have to be a big deal. One of the reasons you want to do this is not just reward them later, as we all know how to do with gift boxes and so forth, but also you want to make sure that the right hand is talking to the left in your organization and that the trains aren't crossing. For example, sometimes you might see that there is a product manager that is reaching out to a customer, and if you're not keeping track of it, another product manager doesn't know that maybe they shouldn't reach out 2 days later for another type of customer discovery, customer research initiative. You might not realize that, your leadership team has used this customer for 10 different VC calls, and now you're reaching out for a case study. You got to keep track of all these different activities so everybody knows that we're respecting the customer's time. I think sometimes we forget these customers don't work for us, we work for them. And then of course, this really gives you this opportunity to make sure you're rewarding them and keep track and keep yourself accountable that you're doing it, okay? Number 4, another favorite tip, you want to hack these customer calls. Any kind of customer call you have, whether you're a product marketer doing customer discovery work, or you're a customer reference manager doing work around trying to get this customer testimonial, hack that call to really get the most value you can out of it. Let me show you what I mean. Let's say that you are doing a customer discovery call as a product marketer. You're wanting to find out about how they've examined your product and why they decided to buy, and what feedback they have and so forth. In that call, say, hey, well, I gotcha. Can I ask you, what do you really love about our product? And then what could we work on? And so during that customer research call for product management, you're asking a testimonial question, and then take that little video snippet and share it in Slack, share it in Notion, and says like, hey, everyone, check out why this customer loves us. And then also show the video snippet. It says, well, we could work on. I promise you, doing this kind of little work, the slicing and dicing work, and killing 2 birds with 1 stone in these different types of customer calls, both for customer testimonials as well as research, will make everyone much happier. Number 5, what you want to do is treat each one of these customers as a hub and a hub and spoke system of storytelling, right? We're going to shower the world with this customer's love. One of the mistakes I see a lot of times is that people will reach out to different customers, a different customer for a case study, a different customer for speaking up. You want to capture that customer story as your hub and then see how much you can squeeze that lemon. Case study, video interview, press mention, customer research work. And this story will become really famous within your company because everybody's going to be hearing about it. And then 2, it's going to be very well known in the market. And that way you're not doing a ton of work of trying to get thousands of customer references. You're really making the most out of the customer references that you have. Well, thank you very much. I really appreciate you listening. I hope that you got something from it. If you want to stay in touch, you can find me on LinkedIn. That's where I talk about work the most. If you just want to see some jokes here and there, follow me on Twitter at JS Hardison.
Hello everyone, and thanks for joining us for the Customer Marketing Summit. As we prepare to unleash another exciting session, we just want to say a massive thank you to all our partners, sponsors, you, and our ensemble of speakers and participants for helping us bring this pioneering event to life. As you probably saw, we were delighted to announce the winner of the Customer Marketing Excellence Award a little earlier today. Missed it? Well, don't worry, because we will be briefly hearing from the winner after this session, so make sure you stay tuned for that. We had a great time reviewing all your fantastic nominations. Thank you again for taking the time to share those with us. I hope you are finding today's sessions insightful, and I want to remind you that the learnings don't stop here. If you haven't already, you can upgrade your pass to include access to all today's sessions on demand. Or you can become a PMA member and benefit from unlimited access to exclusive templates, frameworks, and our entire back catalogue of event content. And remember, this is your chance to get involved. Please share your feedback and questions in the comments section for our speakers to answer. It really is that simple. Now, back to the sessions.
Hey everyone. My name is David Aragri, and I'm here with Katlin Bryant to talk about customer advocacy and to give you some key ideas of how you can, design relationships, understand the key principles of customer advocacy to scale these executive programs and the impact and influence of revenue. But before we get started, I just want to introduce myself and to explain a little bit more about what we do here. So I'm David, of course. I'm the founder of Ruddock Scale. It's a growth enablement platform that enables revenue-focused marketing teams or revenue teams with the technology, processes, and frameworks needed to deliver real-world business results. And I'd like to pass you over to Katlin, who can introduce herself.
Thank you, David. I'm excited to be here. And thanks for the introduction. As you mentioned, I will be discussing the key principles of customer advocacy and how we really design our relationships, how we scale our executive programs, and the impact and influence it really makes on creating our customer champions. And so what I mean by that is, customer advocacy is the heart of our business and a special ingredient on how we nurture, grow, and retain our customers. And so in today's discussion, I will highlight how to scope your customer advocacy programs, the importance of working cross-functionally, and also discussing how to design processes for your key stakeholders to establish strong, lasting key relationships, and really showcase the value of your product across the organization, and an overview of executive programs, which will lead creating enthusiastic customer champions, no matter where you're located. And also we'll touch on how to really, navigate things and how to also outline your customer advocacy toolkit and really structure which programs you're going to be leveraging at the right time. So we'll really get into how to design your customer advisory board, your executive briefing center, your executive sponsorship program, and really the big one, executive roundtables. And then, if we have time, we'll really touch on, how to design programs in a distributed setting. And so really excited to be here and kick things off, David.
Right, yeah, that makes perfect sense. You made a great point about, given the world that we're all adjusting to with COVID, especially. I noticed that Asana recently launched the Autonomy of Work program, and this must have played like a huge role in customer advocacy. Could you probably explain a little bit about how Asana has created this index, this Autonomy of Work index, and what you've seen with how people are working globally and how they're working together in a remote setting?
Yeah, so I'm glad you brought that up, David. Actually, when I joined Asana, we were really outlining a big report earlier this year. It was, Asana released an in-depth analysis into how people spend time at work and the factors shaping those habits. And we called it the Anatomy of Work Index. It found that despite organizations' best efforts to recreate what worked in the office in a remote setting, global workers are struggling to stay aligned and connected. And so on my end, I really took that information and really scoped out how can I best benefit our customers and how can we feed this information to them to, number one, get them to continue to thrive, but also provide them information so they understand that they're not in this alone.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that sounds absolutely fantastic. And I'd encourage everyone who's watching this to take a look at that and to really see, what they could take of value from so that we can understand how we're working during this time in the pandemic and trying slowly to come out of that and how the world has just changed so much. So with regards to that, and in addition, talking about customer advocacy overall, what would you say are some of the key principles of customer advocacy?
Yeah, that's a good one. So I would say, as we think about our key principles, especially in the times that we're living in right now, I had to take a step back actually. And what I thought about first is, when outlining our strategy of customer advocacy at Asana, we had to think through different lenses. So in the absence of in-person events, storytelling, and delivering valuable insights to our customers, we wanted to make sure that stayed at the top of mind. So when we launched the Anatomy of Work Index, I really thought about how can we talk about essential work? How do we get our customers together to find value? And so given the state of COVID and our current restrictions, I outlined making sure we put our customers first and creating a customer-centric experience, creating an engaging experience that worked for leaders as they navigated through this distributed side of things. And then really importantly, providing a networking opportunity for them, regardless of where people are located. And so, one of our biggest models here at Asana is we think it's important to remember there is no one size fits all. And so we really try to think about what's going to be best for our customers, and what's going to put them in the best situation to thrive and build and be innovative. And so with that, when I thought about our key principles, I started thinking about, number one, we have to engage key stakeholders. Number two, we have to gather insights. And number three, we have to build a compelling story, not just for us, but really for our customers. We want to make sure that they are, of course, top of mind, but they can thrive in any industry, they can thrive in any environment, and they're set up for success. So when thinking about those three components, and going into a little deeper on the key stakeholders, when I think about that, for customer advocacy to succeed, customer insights must be top of mind for the business, and it must be tracked at every level. So all the primary stakeholders must be informed and involved to ensure intelligence, and ensure that we get the right results at the right time to provide the best customer experience. So for us, Asana stakeholders, it's our customers, our business partners, our employees. And so with the support of our champions, which is our kind of top of the line customers, we get full customer feedback, and we take that feedback from our customers and we really embed that into the culture here at Asana, all the way from looking at our product, all the way from looking at how we navigate, making sure we provide the best experience for our customers. And so that is top of mind for us because our stakeholders allow us to give us critical feedback, but really allow us to navigate and go into the right direction going forward. And so I'll kind of pause there, see if you have any additional questions before we kind of go into a deeper dive with the other principles.
Yeah, for sure. To start off with, I just wanted to say that it shows just how important it is to take care of customers in general. I do see a lot of SaaS companies who they talk a bit about we care about our customers, but they don't actually deliver on that from the top down. I describe myself as a customer-led growth engineer, so I'm kind of dealt with speaking to customers, finding out what their key problems they're struggling with, and trying to help them, whether that's through the product, whether that's via community or via other ways. So yeah, what other insights would you say that you've seen at Asana with regards to customer advocacy and trying to get a full understanding of how that can work in your brand?
Definitely. So when thinking about our best practices, especially for engaging our stakeholders, we're thinking about how can we share with customers, what they've learned, and then the commitments that they have, but really, making sure that we create new channels for our customers at Asana to have full control and actually have full open space to provide feedback. And then also creating new ways for us to really showcase that information across the company. And then lastly, really just creating new ways to translate critical insights. That's big for us because with our customers giving us this feedback, we actually know how to continue designing products that will benefit them and making sure that they are set up for success. But that really ties into gathering the insights. And so when thinking about our insights at Asana, customers are our number one inspiration. And being a customer-centric company, we understand that customer advocacy is a journey, not a destination. Yeah. It takes time, right? And Rome wasn't built overnight, and neither is customer advocacy. And so customer advocacy means businesses continuously get feedback from customers, and they continuously reiterate to make sure that we're showcasing the right information. And then really with Asana's advocacy toolkit, our programs allow us to connect with our valuable customers and gain the insights and then be able to act on the insights given. And so really to bring leaders across key organizations and discuss their findings, their concerns, we actually launched our first peer-to-peer leadership roundtable, which actually included a really nice wine tasting experience. And that's thinking about if we bring back our anatomy of work, we really saw some of the key findings that highlighted, burnout
is one of the biggest things, right? It's on a rise. We have 71% of workers experiencing burnout in 2020. And the number of employees working late rose to 87. Yeah, it rose to 87%, which is bizarre, right? And then thinking about distributed work is delaying deadlines. There's unnecessary meetings, 1 hour each week. And there's too many tools. When I was reading the report, it really showcases that people are switching from 10 apps, to 25 times per day. And so when I was thinking about our roundtables and when Asana was really outlining how do we continue to engage our customers, we thought, what's going to separate us from another Zoom meeting when thinking about our peer-to-peer roundtables? And we picked a time, we picked key findings that was going to help them along the way. We didn't talk about the product, we talked about them. We put them first, which I think separates our roundtables from anyone else's. And it was a really great turnout. We actually had 100% attendance. We received great, we received great feedback. Our customers that asked for more. They thought it was an opportunity for them to, number one, connect with their peers. On our side, we received those insights. Right, it was. Everything that you do in customer advocacy is a bit of a gamble in the beginning, and you're just doing trial and error. But each time you do an event or any type of program, you're gaining these insights that's coming directly from your customers. And so it allows you to continue growing in the right direction. So I would definitely say that our customers want to be put in a room, regardless if it's virtual or in person, with like-minded individuals and with an opportunity to network and an opportunity to actually give us feedback. And I think that that's one of the most important things when we think about our insights. And then lastly, it helps us really go to the final principle, which is building a compelling story. I think that with advocacy, that goes hand in hand. Customer advocacy utilizes those insights, but how do we turn that into a compelling story that benefits our customers? And so I think it might be one of the most important segments because it allows us to amplify our customer voices. So when they give us this feedback, we just don't put it in a secret box, We actually take that information and do something good with it that benefits them long term.
Right, that makes sense. And this actually kind of reminds me that product marketing and customer advocacy is quite similar, because within product marketing, it's all about building that compelling story, that strategic narrative, and trying to make sure that we use the language that our customers are using within our messaging. And by doing that, we're actually finding that customers, if we can resonate better with our customers, we get better results. And so to follow on from that, how can someone build a successful advocacy program? And let's say if I'm starting today, if you was to have a successful advocacy program, how does that directly impact your customer marketing strategy and ultimately generate revenue for you as an organization?
Yeah, so I have a few components that I like to stick to. The biggest one is understanding the business and product and customer needs first. When we outline our strategy here at Asana, of course, we keep our customers top of mind, but we also look at the product and where we are, and we look at the business, and most importantly, we look at the needs of our customers. And from there, we start scoping. And then having a clear understanding of what customer advocacy programs you have and what can work well for the size of your company, for the type of customers, is important. And then understanding what other teams have already done with your customers. You don't want to recreate the wheel. So really understanding and teaming up with your customer marketing team, with your community team, with your customer success, and understanding what do has already worked well, and what are you looking to design that you haven't had the bandwidth to do so. And then once you have that, it creates a better landscape for you to actually work cross-functionally and understand who your key partners are, working cross-functionally to make sure that the programs are seamless and scalable, but making sure that your customers are benefiting at every level. And then also lastly, really outlining the program guardrails. I think that every program that you design at Asana, we are really cautious of the guardrails that we provide to make sure that we are providing the best experience for our customers, but also making sure that if we launch a new program, that it's going to be scalable, it's going to be sufficient, and ultimately it's going to go back to our principles of getting great customer insights, building that executive relationship and getting those key sponsors, and long-term building the compelling story that will not just benefit customer advocacy, but benefit our entire organization in a sense of our customer marketing team who amplifies our customers, our customer success team who goes hand in hand in making sure that their customers are successful. And then also back to our sales organization, making sure that they understand the full journey of their pipeline and who they're talking to and what's going to be engaging for them. And so it comes full circle. So I would say understanding the business, understanding what programs you want to roll out, but what is needed at that time, and understanding who are your partners. You can't do advocacy alone. It's definitely a team effort, and you have to work cross-functionally.
And this is something that I find to be quite interesting as well, is the idea of working cross-functionally, having marketing teams and sales teams, and the whole marketing sales alignment dilemma that is talked about a lot. And I'm now starting to see more marketing sales teams starting to be real advocates for the CS teams as well, the CS and support teams. I think when we all work together, at the end of the day, we're all working towards the same goal. And I think the more that we're able to do that, the better. And so coming off of that, could you walk us through how you would start to plan and begin setting up an executive customer program, so to speak?
Yeah, of course. So I would actually look at some of the data, right? And look at what do we want to accomplish first. I try to look strongly at what our NPS scores looks like already, what our CSAT scoring looks like. And then I meet a good amount with our sales, CS, and marketing teams to really scope out what's going to work well for our customers. And then outlining a detailed budget and scoping that is top of mind. So let's just say, one of the biggest programs that we've launched so far is our executive peer-to-peer roundtables. They happen on a monthly basis, and we really take a step back and look at the demand of our customers, but we also look at the content that we're publishing on a regular basis that will be beneficial for our customers. And so if we think about our anatomy of work, that has been working well for us because it allows us to have our customers talk about what's really going on with them and how to navigate the industry. And so that one is important because some roundtables you never want to be sold to, right? Especially in these environments. And so I'm very cautious when designing our executive programs for customer advocacy because I want customers to feel valued and I want them to take notes and actually feel as though they gained something that they couldn't get anywhere else. And so with our roundtables, we sketch out what's going to be top of mind, but we also send surveys to our customers in advance. And we look at that tailored list of customers that we know will be great and beneficial in that room together as peers. And when they actually say, yes, I'm excited to attend this roundtable, I go ahead and as a team, we tailor out a survey highlighting what we plan to talk about, but also giving the opportunity to the customers to add what they would like to cover as well. And along with our survey, we send out the Anatomy at Work Index report in this case. They have the opportunity to review that report and challenge us a bit and ask compelling questions that they would love to have covered in that roundtable. So when we come together, some of these individuals, they're on different sides of the country, but they all have the same thing in common of understanding what's going to be talked about, understanding the pains that they want to address. So it's a very intimate conversation and it's filled with that networking component. And so really we're taking a step back and looking at, number one, how do we get our customers engaged? How do we give them what they need? But then 3, how do we utilize all of the positive and impactful work that we're doing as a team? So when you bring those two things together, that's how you're really able to create these successful, engaging programs that don't just take place one time, but they actually become a series. And you actually can say, hey, this is a functionable program that's going to last throughout the times, regardless of how distributed our work world is. And I think that that's the importance of customer advocacy, when you can thrive and cater to your customers, regardless of if we're in person or virtual. We're able to still provide them the content that they need to be successful and the relationship opportunity for them to thrive and create those peer-to-peer relationships that they wouldn't be able to do so without such an impactful program.
And that's exactly what I love, the fact that, with a good customer advocacy program, you can build these close relationships with your customers. Because I've always come from the school of thought that if you look after your customers well, then not only will they continue to pay you for years to come, but they will also start to refer other people to your brand as well. And so it's just all about taking care of your customers from the beginning to the end. So I imagine that building a customer advocacy program or any executive customer program, you're going to need some kind of essential tools, at least to make sure that it's successful. So what would you say are some of the most essential tools that a successful customer advocacy team needs to have to be able to function? And does this just include software, or is there specific elements needed?
Yeah, so from a software perspective, here at Asana, we use our own tool. So I would say that it's extremely important to have a work management tool that can work cross-functionally, and you can actually track on a regular basis and feel confident that when you shut your laptop off, everyone is aligned and you're still progressing. So I would say make sure you have that tool, especially in whatever environment that you're in. You want to make sure everyone stays on track. But then within that, that's from a tool component. You have to think about from an advocacy perspective, you're working cross-functionally a good amount of time. So having monthly team check-ins with the right teams is going to be important for you to stay on track with your deadline and to also make sure that the information is communicated to all of your important teams that are going to be sort of having a hand in your program. And so that leads me to, you need visibility. And so when thinking about having our project in Asana, everyone has visibility into, let's say, our roundtables. They understand who's being invited, how long the event will be, the surprise and delight, the expectations, what does good look like, feedback, etc. It all lives in one project. And so our, all the way from our CMO can look at that project, all the way from individual contributors, so they all stay on track. And then I think it's really important to understand what your numbers are, your goals are of engagement. Sometimes you want to outline these goals, of course, in advance, but what does good look like in your eyes? Sometimes that could just be the acceptance in attendance, right? And also looking at the ratio of, if someone says, yes, I'm going to come to your customer advocacy program, whether that's a executive briefing or a roundtable or one-to-one, looking at the ratio of how many people actually say yes, but also how many people actually commit and show up. That's a big impact. And then really also understanding the content roadmap and your product roadmap. I think that you can't be successful with customer advocacy if you don't understand how to communicate your product roadmap and your content. That goes hand in hand, and feeding that information to your customers will set them up for success as well. Because they can give that feedback and making sure that everyone's going in the right direction. And then really understanding how you can transition your programs regardless of what type of distributed workplace you're in. So that's where I think the product information and the content comes into place, because you can communicate that information regardless of if it's going to be a remote Zoom engagement, or if it's going to be at some point that in person, the content is still relevant, the product is still relevant, and the feedback from your customers is still top of mind.
Right. Yeah. This is awesome to know. Like a few weeks ago, I worked for organizations where we had done things like customer advisory boards and building out some customer advocacy programs, but I had no idea what were the actual metrics. So it was good to hear you explain what that is and why it's so important. But I remember we mentioned a little bit about getting stakeholder buy-in, or at least marketing, sales, and CS alignment. So in order to be successful, I understand that would you agree that customer programs need to be understood and supported by a good number of functions across the entire company? And if so, what are some good techniques and processes, if any, that you've seen to achieve that cross-functional stakeholder buy-in?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's really great, David. And on our end, we think about a business as a whole, right? When we think about our business goals and our OKRs for the year, the quarter, half a year, you name it, we're thinking about that in a team perspective. And so for me, when we're thinking about our customer advocacy programs, I look at what is going to be best and top of mind for our business. And then from there, we work together to outline what does good look like. So let's just throw, a potential business metric out there of, hey, we want to build deeper relationships with some of our best customers. And that's just a high level OKR. But then on my end, I think about, okay, if we want to build these relationships, we need to work together to, number one, identify the accounts and the customers we want to start to engage with. And then two, we need to work hand in hand with the people that are actually in the field. So our field marketing team, our sales individuals, our customer success. And we actually outline what are your goals? And so if there's a certain number of accounts that they're working with, how do we actually help you nurture those accounts to make sure you find success? And then lastly, when you take all of that together, we can actually feel confident of, hey, we're going to launch 3, customer engaging programs. And each one of these programs will influence the development of our relationships for the business. And if we receive 100% of engagement with X, Y, and Z, program, then we not only meet our number from a customer advocacy perspective, but our cross-functional teams can feel confident that they're going to hit their goals. And from a business perspective, we all are aligned with that one common goal of, hey, design and create better engaging relationships.
Yeah, I absolutely love that, and especially with the part of translating those in-person experiences, and building those relationships with identifying those accounts and building relationships with them. I think that's really important, and I don't think, even as a marketer, I don't think we do enough of that, or at least enough support for the customer support and CS teams and customer advocacy teams with regards to that level of work. So I love hearing about that. And let's say if I just started and I built out a customer advocacy program and it's in place now, what specific metrics are you using to prove the value and ROI of the program, so that I can say, okay, this is providing good value to us, we should keep doing this for months and years to come?
So for us, we really measure how many new champions have we confirmed throughout the journey of our program. So let's just say number of relationships developed is definitely key and top of mind. And also looking at your CSAT and NPS score within the account, I think that is extremely tangible and easy to measure. And I think that hand in hand, you should be looking at those NPS scores and CSAT scores when looking at your programs and looking at the customers involved in those programs. You should feel confident that, of course, the NPS and CSAT is either stagnant in a positive area, or it's constantly going up as they engage. And then really, I think the biggest part is the level of engagement and participation within each program. And so when you're thinking about customer advocacy, most of the times your programs, it's a pilot, right? It's a first time rolling it out, and you get this big engagement and you think you did a wonderful job with, let's say, your customer advisory board, your executive sponsorship program, your roundtable. It's wonderful, right? The thing is, you have to make sure it's scalable. So if you do it one time, that's fine. That was a trial and error. But can you confidently say this is a program that happens consistently on a monthly cadence, a quarterly cadence, half-year cadence? The most important thing is, can you repeatedly say this program is providing value? And number two, can you repeatedly say that your customers are all in and they're showing up and they're constantly engaging, demanding more? I think that is honestly one of the best ways to track your customer advocacy programs, because with engagement comes happy customers. With happy customers comes raving fans. With raving fans comes a thriving business.
I absolutely love that. Yeah, it's the perfect trifecta of it all. And like customer advisory boards and customer advocacy programs has definitely been something that I've been wanting to implement into my own organization. And I've been hearing a lot of other companies talk about doing this. So yeah, that's all the questions I've got for you for today. I was so happy that you took the time to speak with us and to do this fireside chat. And yeah, if anyone has any other questions for myself or Katlin, feel free to leave them in the comments. Also feel free to message us on LinkedIn. We'd be happy to help. All right, I'll see you all soon. I hope you have a great day, and we'll be in touch soon. All right, take care. Bye-bye.
Hello everyone. Thank you so much for joining the Customer Marketing Summit today. We hope you're enjoying the session so far. We know there is a huge amount of talent within this field, so we wanted to give a special shout out to a few superstars with the Customer Marketing Excellence Award. We have been overwhelmed by the number of nominations we have received, so thank you to everyone who took the time to submit their nominee. It was a difficult one to narrow down, but I'm delighted to share with you now the runners-up for the award. And now for the big announcement. I'm delighted to confirm that the winner of the Customer Marketing Excellence Award April 2021 is... A huge congratulations are in order. Now to hear a few words from our worthy winner.
Hey everyone, it's Lilley Bautista, Senior Customer Marketing Manager at Gong. Customer marketing, at the heart of it all, is all about storytelling, recognition, relationships. Prospects for our companies trust us more because we're uplifting the authentic customer voice rather than just talking about ourselves. So it's an honor to receive this award, but it wouldn't be complete without me highlighting the people who are responsible for my success story. I want to thank my marketing leaders at Gong, Sheena Badani, Julian Savage, and Udi Ledergore, for giving me an environment where I can thrive and experiment. We weathered the challenges of 2020 together, but because of your work in building such a powerful brand, my life as a customer marketer is a lot easier. To all my colleagues who nominated me, thanks for your support and for connecting me not only to your customers, but to your projects as well. In my career as a customer marketer, it's always been my job to highlight the customer, to put them on a pedestal. I'm more behind the scenes, and I'm sure a lot of customer marketers feel the same way. That's why I'm so grateful for this award and the Product Marketing Alliance for putting customer marketing, our function, in the spotlight. Thank you.
Hi everyone, and welcome to the Customer Marketing Summit. Thank you for joining us.